TikTok. And we'll be taking live calls tonight, 202-683-4570. Press star 5 to speak. I will say that number again. It is 202-683-4570. Press star 5 to speak. You can call anytime we're having a conversation. If you feel you want to contribute, if you feel you want to say something, or if you feel you have a question that you want to ask. So save that number. Now, later tonight, we'll revisit President Ruto's trip to the U.S. and talk about the goodies that we bagged. We'll also be asking, what does the U.S. want from Kenya that's not in public view? I'll say that again. What does the U.S. really want from Kenya that's not in public view? We'll then talk of strategies diasporans can use while interacting with Kenyan politicians for maximum impact beyond good vibes. Do diaspora Kenyans meet politicians just for good vibes? So start dropping your comments below and let us know what you think. Na bila kusahau, tunapokea mziki toka DJ wetu, Machachari, Mleta Habari, DJ Bandit. Na tutadunda kule viwanjani na Mika Och, jezi namba 7 mgongoni, akituletea habari za michezo. Na moja kwa moja toka Kilimanjaro Studios ni mimi mtangazaji na mwana habari wako mpendwa Ali Badawi. Kwetu wananiita mteule na wengine mniite mjukuu wa Masai. Because I'm Kenyan by blood, American by design, Masai by choice. Sichagui, sikagui, na sibagui. Karibuni.
Now, let's talk politics.
Now this hour, you're not going to have politics, but in studio we have Dr. Jeffrey Johnson. He's the CEO of the National Partnership for Community Leadership. He'll be talking about an upcoming International Fatherhood Conference in Washington, D.C. He'll also briefly touch on the importance and impact of responsible fatherhood. So please drop a comment below and tell us where you're tuned in from and what you're thinking about with Father's Day coming up soon. And I'm your co-host and producer, Ali Badawi. It's Friday the 31st of May, and we are streaming live from Kilimanjaro Studios outside Washington, D.C. Please remember to follow us again on The One Mic Show on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. And on panel with me tonight is Mr. One Mic Kamakawa. Our sports anchor, Mika Och, will be joining us via Zoom. Our resident DJ Moshfire will be joining us not in studio, but he will tell us exactly where he is if he ever had a chance to come back from Atlanta. And DJ Bandit was already live on the decks. And also not forgetting that he's also our super producer, Asante Sana Mubelwa Bandio. And today we're going to get started right away because we have so much to cover tonight. Of course, later on in the show, like I said earlier, we're going to be recapping President Ruto's official trip to the U.S. This was a very big trip. A whole week he was in the U.S., so we're going to be talking about it. So keep your points and stay tuned. But to get us started tonight, we know with the rate of divorce significantly on the rise over the last few decades, the role of fathers has taken a sudden shift in a rapidly changing world. A two-parent household that was once a norm is no longer the reality for most children growing up today. Now, to address challenges experienced by modern-day fathers, the National Partnership for Community Leadership, also known as Npcl, will be hosting its 26th International Fatherhood Conference in the DMV area. The conference will be held this coming week from Tuesday, June the 4th to Thursday the 6th at the Doubletree by Hilton on Georgia Avenue in Silver Spring, Maryland. Now, registration is currently ongoing at npclfathersandfamilies.org. The and is spelled out A-N-D. That's npclfathersandfamilies.org. We are gonna place the link on the comments below, and you can also find details of the event on the same website. Now, joining us tonight to briefly talk about this event is the CEO of Npcl, Dr. Jeffrey Johnson. Now, under his guidance, Npcl has organized international fatherhood conferences since 1997. Dr. Johnson's work has focused on addressing challenges faced by low-income men and their families. He's also a prolific author, having written numerous curricula, articles, and publications, including 2 recent books, Your Journey to Co-Parenting and Cornerstones of Responsible Fatherhood. So make sure you find those books and buy them. Now, without much further ado, I want to take this moment to welcome to Kilimanjaro Studios and the One Mic Show, Dr. Jeffrey Johnson. Karibu sana. Welcome to the One Mic Show.
Thank you for having me to talk about the conference.
Okay, and how are you doing today? How are you feeling?
I'm doing good. I've had a long day. You know, as you prepare for conferences, there's a lot of detail that goes on, but we expect a fantastic conference, and I really want your listening audience to know that all that come that are welcome.
Okay, all right, and I know it's a very busy period right before conferences. I just attended a convention in Baltimore over Memorial Weekend that had 40,000 people. I'm going to be talking about it later, and it took a lot to organize. Actually, I was talking to someone in the organizing committee. They told me that they started organizing it 8 months before the actual event, and you can tell it's not an easy task dealing with so many human beings, especially in situations where you cannot predict how many are going to show up.
Right. Well, the thing is that just like in a business, whatever a big business does, a small business has to do too. And so we're not going to have 40,000 people, but we have enough people that we have to manage it very carefully because the expectations and the logistics involved in it have to go off without a hitch. And so we're planning at that level.
Okay. All right. Good. Now, to just get us warmed up, maybe just get started, Dr. Johnson. The theme of this year's conference is moving fearlessly forward. Now, with all issues happening in today's world regarding the cost of living, the breaking apart of the village that used to raise the children, and unprecedented social issues facing our children, how are fathers meant to move forward without fear? Dr. Johnson.
The thing is that for some fathers, they got to be taught to approach it without fear. The one can't assume that all of us grow up in the same way, have the same traditions in terms of how we look at family, how we've been influenced by our faith. And it becomes an educational mission. And I think that's a lot of what I do. I do that not only with the fathers, but I also do that with the staff and the practitioners who work with fathers. Because if you look at the whole issue of fatherhood in America, one of the issues, particularly as it relates to public policy, you have to think about that, particularly when you talk about low-income individuals. Fathers were actually written off or not identified within the initial family policy. It goes back after the Civil War, when the charities began to support widows whose husbands didn't come back for war. They kind of drove the whole emphasis on maternal and child support for all those years. And then in the 1930s with President Roosevelt, under the then Frances Perkins, who was head of Department of Health, Education, and Welfare, she got Roosevelt to establish what they call aid to dependent children. But the focus of it was not on women of color, but primarily white women who were widows. But the thing I want you to realize in that is that men were not included. The fathers, based on the initial way in which this work started many years ago, was assumed to be dead, not around. And so there's no on-ramps for fathers, and there's a lot of schools of social work that don't even address the whole issue of men and fathers when it comes to families. And organizations like mine have come around, to say that fathers matter. The first federal legislation that we had in this country to focus on fathers was called Fathers Count. We count too. And it's not to suggest that fathers are any better than the mother. The reality is that the data says that fathers are as important as mothers, not more important, but as important to a child's self-esteem, their whole health development, their whole academic development as mothers. And fathers provide their care differently, but it's two parents working together. What we've witnessed over the last 30 years is a decline not only in marriage, but in the desire of a lot of parents to not marry. And so what you have,
wow, okay,
we've had a fourfold increase. 16 million families have started without a mother and father being married for a lot of different reasons. It's not a particular issue unless the family is poor, because then that requires some public support, and that it's been very hard over the years to really make fatherhood an issue as equal a focus as it is for mothers, particularly when they have the same basic background. They come from the same demographic environment. They both may have dropped out of school. They both have had challenges making connections to the labor market to get a job, but the on-ramp is there for the mothers, but it's not been there for the fathers, and that's what my organization does. We teach agencies, we teach individuals how to work with fathers too, because fathers matter.
Okay, fathers matter. Now, there are so many things that you've said that I don't know where to start unpacking. You talked about like actually people not having the desire to want to get married, like proceeding forward and people feeling like I can have a child, but I do not necessarily need the presence of a father because I'm making enough money, I'm doing okay. I don't need the presence of a father. So there's actual statistics that show black people are not getting married as much as other races.
Well, listen, it's been long-standing since, only half of black people actually get married, half. And so that means that another half does not. It's interesting when you look back at the data, back in in 1950, for example, 80% of all black families were husband and wife families. 80%, right. And that came out of, and I want you to follow that and track that through slavery, because, we couldn't marry in slavery. And so the actual marriage rate of blacks from slavery up to the 1950s was more than any other group, because we couldn't marry during slavery. And so when slavery was over, we married, and we stayed married for a while. And then we had changes in our economy. That's one of the things that folks have not looked at as carefully as they should, because that influences the decisions about whether or not to marry or not. And particularly if you are what I call a dead broke dad and a dead broke mom, right? And so you're in a position where public assistance comes into play, and what happens is that it's been the practice that a lot of mothers and fathers who are poor collude, and then they say to themselves, while the father's trying to get his act together so he can get a job to be the provider he wants to be, that the mother and child go on public assistance. So even though he's there, he's not there. Documented, because there's a Center for Disease Control study done about 3 years ago, and what they found is that black fathers are more involved than any other father group in America. However, what you miss in that understanding is that a lot of black fathers are not recorded, because if their children are on public assistance, the way the system is set up is that the father can't be there, because if you make $1 more over the poverty line, your child can't go to Head Start. They can't get the medical support and all the things that are necessary, to grow up whole and to grow up and to be, for that child to be all that you want to be. And so these are some of the realities that are going on. But I think that part of it too is that, back in the 1950s, I grew up in Detroit. All right, for anybody listening who know Detroit, we know that they used to be called the Motor City capital of the world.
Yep.
So the way you made your way to middle class is by working in the factories, and that the factory was at its height during World War II, because many of our parents, even my parents and their parents, moved from the South to the North. I'm a first-generation Northerner, and they came to the North primarily to work in the factories. But after the war ended, the factory system began to go in decline. And so a lot of those jobs that influence marriage decisions, amongst families stopped. It just literally stopped. There was a report done in 1965 by the then Department of Labor Secretary. His name was Daniel Patrick Moynihan, and he wrote a document called The State of the Negro Family. And at that time, he predicted that if we didn't get it under control, the out of wedlock births amongst African American families, that instead of having two-parent households, they were going to be mother-led families. Back then in '65, it was 25%. Today, would you believe that 75% of all black children born in America are born outside of marriage? Let me break it down even further. 75% of black children are born outside of marriage. 55% of all Latino children are born out of marriage. 40% of all our children are born outside of marriage. And what happens, particularly when you're poor, is that even though the mothers and fathers start out with great intent, poverty brings on a lot of anxiety, a lot of stressors, and without having a legal union, what happens is that without the support to manage their conflict in a healthy way, fathers and mothers go in different directions. They go in different directions, and they, to some extent, drop that child, all right, and move on to another relationship. And then still that child that they bore together does not have the two parents that brought them into the world together. And it's interesting. They've even done studies where you have instances where fathers who really want to be fathers, but they have broken relationship with the mother, but they always wanted to be father, to that child. But the mother said she was through with him, and then so he decided to go to the next woman, have a child. Didn't work out. He goes to the next woman, and we've been able to find instances where he goes to 5 different relationships until he gets to the point where he can be the father that he wants to be.
Wow. You're tuned into the One Mic Show. The number to call in, 202-683-4570. Press star 5 to speak. Dr. Johnson in the studio. We're talking about fatherhood. There is an upcoming conference, and you can find the details on Npcl Fathers and Families .org. That's the International Fatherhood Conference that's happening in Washington, D.C. at the Doubletree Hilton. So a lot of things to get packed. A lot of things getting unpacked here. Couple of comments, like I can see people are already tuned in. Fab Gidinji, Karibu Sana, Stephen JJ, I can already see you there. So ask questions, because I see a lot of fathers here in the comments. I'm not seeing questions coming in. Like some
single fathers, all that.
Yeah, single fathers, single mothers. I'm not seeing questions coming in. I can see Mimo Koinange saying, also watching from Diani Beach, aka Dallas, Texas. Karibu Sana, Mimo Koinange. I can see Ngodo Kinyanjui. Washekeni Rangu is also in the building. And then in studio, of course, I have the one and only Uno Mike. And all the way in Atlanta, Georgia, we have DJ Omosh Fire. So let me get started with DJ Omosh Fire. Just briefly, within a minute, salimia wasikilizaji and just give us a brief of what you thought about that introductory segment by Dr. Jeffrey Johnson. DJ Omosh Fire.
How are you? This is the one and only Omosh coming to you live and direct from a place where there might be a fish or two or three. That was some very insightful stuff. I guess probably an approach of fatherhood that we had never ever thought of, and going all the way back to slavery, and bring it up to us to advise more on on how fatherhood is, I guess I would call it a protected thing, so to speak, or it's something that we need to hold dear and teach folks how to be a father. Back to you, studio.
All right, asante sana DJ Moshfa. I don't know whether Mika is already logged in and tuned in. If not, Uno Mike.
Party people.
Yes,
no, he's there.
Oh, he's there.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's quickly hear from Mika before we come back to you, Uno Mike. Mika.
Yeah, how are you doing?
Doing great, Mika. That introductory segment on fatherhood, what nuggets did you pick up, Mika?
As Omosha said, it's something funny that when you see how there are connotations that are usually peddled about fatherhood out there, especially fatherhood in the Black community. Now, the way that introduction just went and showed you how far back this goes, and it goes back to the one thing that most people usually say about the Black community, systematic racism, and we try not to tie it together with the issues that we have in the family unit in the Black community, but it's still the same thing. It stems from somewhere back, and it's usually known the family unit is the strongest unit that you can ever, the one strongest unit that you can ever start in a community. So I like that introduction, and I'm really here hoping to learn more and understand more about fatherhood, and especially fatherhood for us Black people.
All right, asante sana Mika. Back to studio, Uno Mike.
Yes, sir.
You've been sitting right next to Dr. Johnson, and you've been feeling the heat of the conversation he's had in the introduction. What did you pick up?
So there's so many things that you pick up, like in terms of so it's given as a journey, slavery, the 50s and the 60s, and sometimes the myth usually is always that Black fathers are never available.
They're absent. Yeah.
Black fathers are absent.
Yeah.
That is usually the case. And on top of that, Black fathers are never willing to participate, or, they're always being taken to child support.
Yeah.
But recently, this needs to be a whole show on itself, because you find out that there are fathers, and you hear of stories of fathers who themselves want to participate but are never ever given the opportunity to want to.
Yeah.
Right? Or some people, some ladies just want to get,
they want to get a baby.
Baby.
And
then that story ends. But on top of that, there's also the issue of, okay, at some point I want to be the father, but am I really truly the father? That's another question.
Oh wow, that's
Okay.
That's opening a can of worms that we're going to talk about later.
Am I
truly the father?
Am I truly the father? So should there be laws that should protect the fathers? Because if I'm not the father,
okay.
should I? But I know Dr. Johnson
Yeah.
here is
Let me-
eating. But
Yeah,
again,
let me let
again, this is
Dr.
this is a
Johnson,
whole
yeah.
show that needs to be on
Yeah.
its own.
Right.
Yeah, let me let Dr. Johnson react to that before we go to the other question, because that's a very sticky issue.
It is. Let me just address it very specifically and say this: DNA. If a father believes that he's not the biological father of a child, he has a opportunity, if he does not marry, to go and get a DNA test to prove that. All right. Now, a lot of mothers, have boyfriends, are in multiple relationships. All right, and so they may get pregnant by someone that maybe they don't know which one of the fathers, but the man who was with her at the time, that is who she puts on the birth certificate. What happens when the DNA comes in to verify whether or not that father is actually the biological father? The data says that 25% of those fathers, are not the biological father.
25%. 1 in 4.
1 in 4. All
Okay.
right. And so that's still a high statistic, but it's not as high as people might think it would be. All right. But there are behaviors that go on amongst men and women that have to be reconciled, that have to be dealt with. What's absent is, what I learned from my parents, was through osmosis. I watched them, and when my father died when I was 12 years of age. I came from a family of 10 children, including 8 boys.
Wow.
And my father was the pastor of a church, and he used to get always teased about how many children he had. But let me tell you what his response was, and I think it was a crown jewel response. He would say to folks, "I will have as many children as I can care for." That's the punch right there.
Wow.
Because unless you're thoughtful about having your children, and that's kind of where I come in, I want you to plan and think about your children. I can't stop you from having sex. I can't do anything. I can ask you to be careful about having children that you're not ready to care for. Because what happens is when you leave children abandoned and they get caught in the foster care system, they get involved in gangs. I've been doing this work for a long time, and so I've seen it in a lot of different dimensions. You have a lot of trauma that's going on. You have what they call the hole in the soul, not only in the boys, but also in the girls, because when people talk about fatherhood, they always assume that he needs to be there for the boys. He also needs to be there for the girls, because we got 2 different realities when we're talking to our girls that's different. One reality is different from the mom. For example, when moms talk about men, they talk about being from the standpoint of being pursued. Y'all hear that? Being pursued. When I talk to my daughter about men, I'm talking to her from the standpoint of a pursuer. That's a whole different conversation.
Whole different perspective.
And you want your daughters and your sons to be well-rounded, to understand the dynamics of what it takes to have a healthy relationship. And we got to start early. We got to start in our elementary schools, and we have to have one of the things that's going to be talked about at the conference on the free day. The first day of the conference on June the 4th is free. And so everybody in your listening audience, if you show up at the Hilton, you're going to get in, and you're going to have a lot of knowledge being given. The first general session is on forgiveness. Now, I want you to think about the importance of forgiveness in terms of the healing of some relationships. Because when you're poor, you're struggling, you're really at each other all the time, and you do things on both sides that neither one wants to claim that they did intentionally. But in order to get to the point where you need to, you really have to understand the whole concept of forgiveness. If you've been a church person or a person of faith, you understand what forgiveness is, and in your journey to forgiveness is much easier with that foundation of faith than it is for somebody who's not to have a faith tradition. So it's important to understand that. And so the person who's going to be talking about is a professor at Morgan State University right there in Baltimore, and he's written books on forgiveness. His name is Darrell Green. And then we're going to have a workshop on the impact of father absence. And I'm going to be doing that workshop. And I'm going to focus in on an absent father case of a popular celebrity. And this celebrity has been successful, has been so successful, this celebrity has won 18 Grammys.
Wow.
18 Grammys. But he has actually had a hole in his soul up until about a year or so ago. when he finally got to meet his biological father. And it's going to be powerful, because what you're going to see is the dynamics of trauma, how it affects folks. He even says that he's been so broken, he doesn't even know when he's well.
Wow.
Because of the trauma associated with not knowing who his father is, right? So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about rites of passage, why rites of passage is so important in terms of developing the next generation of men, developing our boys. We have to be very intentional about that. And that we got to be intentional, because the things that I'm talking about that relate to manhood, he's not going to get from the YMCA. He's not going to get from the Boys Club. He's going to learn some things at the Boy Scouts. But when you talk about being a community man, a productive citizen, that has to come from people like you and I. And it has to be very intentional on our part to volunteer our time to educate the next generation of boys. Muhammad Ali once said that service is the rent we pay for being here on earth. And so that's how I look at it. Working with our young people, helping them, and I'm paying rent. When I'm working with young people, I'm paying rent, for my time here on earth. So we're going to be talking about that. We're going to talk about the importance of father in the early development of children. We care differently, not better, but differently. When my children were born, I was the one of the parent who would throw my children up in the air and catch them. All right? You know what I mean? Right? All right.
Well, the mother watches in horror.
Right.
Yeah.
Let me tell you.
They always watch in horror.
Let me tell you what happened.
They always watch in horror.
But I'm talking about care. So let me tell you a thing that happened. So I had a tree in my front yard, and my oldest son is 5 years older than his sister. And so he used to climb the tree in front of the house, and he used to use nah, I can do something that you can't do. And my daughter used to ask me, Daddy, when I'm going to be able to climb the tree? I said, baby, you're too young right now, but when your time comes, Daddy's going to let you do it. So it came that time. And so I said, baby, you're going to climb this tree. So I picked her up, lifted her up. She started climbing that tree. And then her mother was driving up in the driveway, and she said, I can't even say the name. She called me. It was Sailor's English, right?
Wasn't a very good name. Not a good name.
It was Sailor's English.
Yeah.
And she said, get my baby out of that tree, all right? But I would argue that what I was doing is providing my form of care, and what she was doing was providing her form of care. You see the difference? There's a kinesthetic difference between the two.
Absolutely.
Right. We even talk to our children differently. I never used the phrase "goo goo gaga." I used to say, do you want to go outside? Do you want to go to the store?
Yeah.
All right. And scientists have found that fathers contribute to the whole language development more so than mothers do in the earlier stages. The power is the two. Why is the power the two? Because when you got both mom and fathers there, you got 4 arms, you got 4 legs, you got 4 ears, you got 2 sets of vocabularies, you got 2 sets of families, and so
2 for the price of 1.
2 for the price of 1.
Okay.
All right, and so that's the value of it. But a lot of us are challenged when it comes to those relationships because we've not been taught how to do it. Because think about it: if you've grown up in a situation where, in 75% of the cases of black children, the mother and father were not married. So you grew up like that way, you think, oh, that's okay. That's normal.
Yeah.
That's normal, all right? And the thing that you can't see when you're young is that everything is cool until somebody gets mad, right? Mm-hmm. And then you start going opposite ways because since you're not legal, you have no legal basis.
There's no tie.
There's no tie. And so let me tell you the difference between divorce. Because, see, when you divorce, you at least go before the judge. And the judge has to determine what's going to happen to the care of that child from birth to the time they're 18. The court decides that. They're going to make you come up with what they call a co-parenting plan in terms of how you plan to care for that child 24/7 when you're married. But when you're not married, you don't have that on-ramp. You don't have that basis. So it has to be taught by somebody else. I teach people how to do that. I teach them how to come up with a healthy co-parenting relationship, even though they're not married, so that particularly if they decide not to marry, all right? Because the thing is that a lot of them don't know what they want to do. All right, but they can be co-parents, and that they have to be taught how to do that. And the hardest thing to do is teaching somebody to co-parent with a person when a relationship is dissolved, and having them work out a relationship that's different than having a romantic relationship.
All right. Now, interesting here, there was a question that was coming from Washeke, another one coming from Mudi, but let me read Washeke's first because it has to do with co-parenting.
Yes.
What can we do to promote healthy co-parenting where the black father is very much appreciated and respected?
Well, first of all, you got to work with the mother. because his respect for who he is as a man and a father comes from the mother, and vice versa. Our public assistance system has never required that the mother go through parenting classes, right? The assumption is that since the child is staying with the mother, that she is the model
She's
parent.
experienced,
And that's not necessarily true, all right? I can tell you when we started working with fathers very directly, the first thing we had to do is teach him how to be a responsible father, right? We had to take him through parenting classes. And until you get equity, because you've heard the expression being unequally yoked. And so if you train the father if you educate the father to be the best father he can be, and you're not educating the mother to be the same, they're unequally yoked. So, for example, there have been some studies that show that when you work with the father and get him prepared to be the best parent he can be, and you don't work with her, and they're not married, she's concerned that you're preparing him to be better than her and maybe even take the child away from her, when that's not the intent at all. The intent is to put them in a situation where they understand what it means to be in a healthy relationship. And these programs are like space capsules. What I mean by that, they simulate the conditions through the various sessions and topics that they go through of what they would be doing in their real life life experience as a parent. And you can process that with other folks who are going through the same situation. But I think that the answer to healthy co-parenting is to make sure that both parents get the same knowledge. And if they read my book, Your Journey to Co-Parenting, they both will be on the same playing field when it comes to developing a healthy relationship.
All right, so you already know Your Journey to Co-Parenting. That's a book that you need to buy if you're in a co-parenting situation or if you want to learn about co-parenting. I know Uno Mike had a question.
No, not a question, but a comment. But I'll say this. I think, and I've always said this, Dr. J, you can support, you can elevate, or you can deconstruct. But I've always believed that no matter the tension or the struggle or the rife or whatever goes on between a mother and father with a child, one, the person that gets hurt the most is a child. Two, that child will not and will never always be 1 or 2 or 3. At some point, that child will be 18 and become an adult. And I think once parents understand that this tussle that is here because of rights or because of, and let me just say, believing that I can get child support, I can get so much money because you earn so much or whatever, that is only just before 18 years. But in that 18 years, what are you doing to this child or the children? What exactly, out of this tussle that is going to go on, what type of adult are you going to bring forth? What is going? Is this a person or a child or an individual when they become an adult? Who is that person going to be? Is it somebody who is going to be bitter, vindictive, vengeful? I mean, a loving person, a hating person? We just don't know. But the fact that parents at some point never understand, and I speak this coming from a single mother, and in Kenya, where being a single mother at my age was a problem. In Kenya, it was a bad thing to be a single mother at her age, and we're talking about the early 80s when they divorced.
Yeah.
But that always holds true, where when you don't support, when parents are fighting over the child, then that becomes a problem for the child.
Let me say this.
Yes.
There are different types of co-parenting relationships. They have what they call parallel co-parenting, and this is a co-parenting where even though both parents are involved in the child's life, may not be living together, they don't communicate on how they're going to jointly care for the child. So it's literally a father coming over, the child is mine now, I'll see you later, come back on, Tuesday, they bring the child back on Tuesday without any consultation with the mother about what happened when they were away.
Yeah.
So that's what you call parallel co-parenting. 50% of all co-parenting relationships are parallel co-parenting. Another 25% is what they call conflict co-parenting. And conflict co-parenting is exactly what you talked about. It's when the parents argue in front of the children, and the children, have because what happens is your children grow up insecure, all right, and they're temperamental because here are two parents that they love, but they're arguing all the time. And the child, when they go to school or they get around others, they withdraw because they're still trying to process, one, whether or not they're causing it or what's causing their parents to actually go through this. Do you know that I never saw my mother and father argue, ever?
That is so profound, And that is so amazing that you mentioned that, because I came to learn that, and this is a very simple lesson that I think we should have been taught a very long time ago, that your children are more likely follow what you do
Exactly.
than what you say.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's just like it's that scripture: teach child in a way that they should go, and they will not depart from it.
And it's not like your parents never argued.
They never argued. They did,
But they just never did it in front of you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You see, so what I'm saying. So what am I saying to you, listening audience? You can argue, but just don't do it in front of your kids. All right? Because the research says that is the most destructive type of co-parenting.
It is.
And then the gold standard, and this is what we're trying to get to, is what they call collaborative co-parenting. All right? Where parents work together, they communicate on a regular basis. There's low level of conflict, and here's what they also do. This is powerful. It goes back to your point, because and you can measure this. You know, you can measure improved communication. You can measure lower levels of conflict, but you can also measure the fact that the parents have agreed not to act a fool in front of their children.
Wow. You know, it's very interesting, you know, like what you're talking about, because we are also coming from an African perspective.
Yes.
And the one thing that I want to say that I've noticed, and people can agree or disagree, there was a time when there was this tendency to try to pick out the faults with our parents' generation. In our parents' generation, yes, there were divorces, but they worked so hard to stay together. Today, divorce has become normalized. They worked so hard to stay together. So there's this habit to try and pick and choose that, oh, you know, like my dad didn't do this or my mom didn't do this. But they really worked hard. Like, for example, like you said, your parents, for example, you never heard them ever, you know, like argue with each other.
Never.
But then there's not that acknowledgement that sometimes I feel on how hard the parents worked. So we're now in a very individualized world, where it's all about me, and I. The father is me and I. The mother is me and I. And then the children are caught in between.
Right, and let me say this. I've done this work all over the world, all right?
Okay.
Hence the fact the conference is called the International Fatherhood Conference.
Yeah.
When we got that name back in 1998, we received a grant from the Hague Foundation, from the Bernard Van Leer Foundation, located in The Hague. And they were concerned with early childhood development and the importance of fathers and their role in the early development of children. And so they asked us to open it up to folks from around the world that they were providing grants to, so they could come to the conference and learn the stuff that they're going to be learning next week at our conference. And so for the first 5 years but the thing I had to do, though, I had to put international on the name of the conference in order for them to send representatives from 25 different countries, you know, to the conference for the first 5 years. And then I've done work on fatherhood in Great Britain, in South Africa. I also worked on a project where we looked at the evolution of black manhood in countries where black men were black families were part of the transatlantic slave trade. So I've looked at issues of fatherhood in the Caribbean. I've looked at fatherhood in the context of West Africa, and looked at fatherhood in the context of men of African descent who were in other countries, but were still faced with what you said earlier, or someone said earlier, about racism and the effect it has had on families. Because a lot of our interactions, even today, are shaped by our responses to racism, and whether or not it's us or racism. You know what I mean? And some of the conflicts relate to that. And I think that part of what we have in our curriculum, I wrote a curriculum on fatherhood, and one of the very important sessions that we have in the curriculum is a topic called coping with discrimination. But the whole idea of it is to give our black brothers a sense of psychological empowerment. In other words, my father used to say, because he never used profanity, and I don't either, and he said, "Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me." But he used that as a way to rise above, the sting and the hurt of racism. What I like to tell folks a lot of time, particularly in America and a lot of Western culture countries, is that, look, I love being a black man, but sometimes it's just daggone inconvenient.
All right, and remember now you've gone to the western parts of Africa. You've gone to the Caribbean.
Yes.
You've gone to South Africa. Now you need to come to Kenya.
I've been to Kenya. Matter
Allah.
of fact,
Oh, okay.
I've been to Kenya. I've actually spent some time with the Maasai and spent a lot of time there. And so I'm very familiar, with that. And so this is the work I do. You know what I mean? I didn't always know what my purpose was, but this is my purpose. And so
This is your purpose
and,
on
right,
earth.
and it's not monolithic. You know what I mean? It is diasporic. And I really do concern myself with issues facing men of African descent around the world.
All right. Now, a couple of... Okay, go ahead.
No,
and then
go
I'm
ahead.
going to read the comments.
Read the comments. Read the
Okay,
comments.
so-
Because those comments are...
Yeah,
There's
so,
very many
so
comments
Mwakisha
supporting.
says, true, I have never seen my parents argue. So that's very good, and that's quite a privilege because there are people who've grown up seeing their parents argue, and that does affect you. And then Udi had earlier asked a question. I like your advice, and maybe you can advise us on how to raise our daughters. I'll also, the next question also Udi asks is, I think my question was answered by Washeka's question, and it's a good point Dr. J has raised. Co-parenting is key. If you show your kids treat each parent as friendly, then the kids will pick it up. And then Washeka says, in our Kenyan environment, there was always a safety for kids who are being raised by one parent. Parenting and the responsibility of raising the child to a healthy adult was undertaken by the whole village. Unfortunately, with the adoption of the Western way of life, we are losing this. Uno Mike, you wanted to say something?
No, I was going to read the comments.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
But I think Omosh has been quiet for a while.
Yes, Omosh, talk to us. Tell us what you think about what has been transpiring in the studio.
It's overwhelming, I guess, and some of the things that Dr. J is bringing forth about, the family unit, the family structure, our parents, and seeing how they interacted with each other or didn't interact with each other. I can speak for myself. I saw my parents, argue, and the effect of that for me, I don't know if I'd say, I think I would say it has been negative in some aspects, but also has made me cautious about certain things, or maybe it has also made me become more unfeeling in some areas. So you see what happened and you say, I don't want to be like that, or if I ever get to be that way, then so it's very key for parents to really watch how they interact, behave around the kids, because again, later on it becomes either a traumatic event or for the kids, or it affects how they also interact with other folks and within their relationships as well. So just like Udi said, show us how to, or can you give us examples or things or direction on how to raise the girl child, and that becomes a whole other conversation, I think. But when it comes back to sons and looking and seeing how your father interacts with your mother, interacts with other folks, and then in turn interacts with you, that also determines how you then learn how to interact within your space and how your relationships pan out. And it also sets you up for either failure or for success. So it's very crucial, and the parental units need to understand that, especially when you're dealing with black males, and I would venture to say in America.
Right.
Back to your studio.
I would say black males and black females. Again, because what I really want us to understand about the importance of parenting is the two parents and the role that each of them play in influencing the behavior of both our boys and both of our girls. My simple response, but I think it is pregnant, is the way that we raise our girls is to teach them to be girls as long as they can. I want you to think about what I'm saying. In other words, don't grow up too quick, honey. All right? Don't grow up too quick. Let me tell you how I did that in my household. All right? When my daughter was 11, 12 years old, she started getting the phone calls. All right? From
boys,
the cute guys.
Yeah.
Right? And so when they would call, I would answer the phone. Right?
It was definitely the landlines, like
that's
wasn't cell phones back then.
Right.
Yeah.
It's hard to do that now, but you have some control, particularly when your children are a certain age, of who they're listening to and talk to on their cell phones. But the upshot of it is that I was looking for the magic response when I say, well, she said, well, this is John, I want to talk to, Jasmine. And I would say, what do you want with Jasmine? Oh, just to talk. Phone got hung up. That's pregnancy prevention, right? Because I did that. I blocked, and I allowed her to grow up as a girl, all right, as long as she could. She learned how to be a woman by being the best girl she could be because she always knew that daddy was present. So that's the other thing I would say. Teach her how to be a girl as long as she can, right? And I want you to think about what a girl is different from what a woman is with a child, a girl. You follow that? And then be present. You got to be present. I've traveled around. I'm a 1,400,000 mile flyer, right? So I've been out there, right? I never missed a flute recital. I never missed a debate. I don't care where I was always there, all right? Because when you're present, you could answer questions, because they have questions. And some of the questions mom could answer, in the way in which, a mother would do it. But the father has some answers too. But you can't do any of that unless you're present.
Now, I've had different pieces of
Okay.
advice.
Yes.
Like when it comes to that issue, especially when those phone calls start coming in. Of course, today you're dealing with kids with cell phones.
Right.
I have my own reservations towards that.
Right.
But you have a lot of kids out there with cell phones. So I've had different pieces of advice of, don't protect them too much. You have to let them, figure things out by themselves out there. And then, because if you block them too much, the day when you let them go, when they go to college, then they will go wild.
Well, I don't know. It varies. It's a case by case thing to me, because I would say that you should have the type of relationship with your children, and you should know who their friends are, and have some idea of who they're talking to. A lot of parents, are oblivious to that. All right, there is a value to being around your children and monitoring them for a certain period of time before they launch, right? Before they launch. But you have to, but the only way you can be mindful of that and to be on top of that is to know who their friends are, the things that interest them, and that comes from spending time with them.
Oh, okay.
Spending time.
Yeah.
Presents matter. I'm not talking about presents, gifts. I'm talking about your physical presence matters.
Yeah.
There's a friend of mine, she wrote a book, Papa Was a Rolling Stone, A Daughter's Journey to Forgiveness. And she asked me to write the foreword on the book. Her name is Robin Wright King. You can get that book off of Amazon. But she asked me to read it, and I read it, and I read the book, and it was a love story. It was a love story of a daughter who wanted to be a daddy's girl and never had an opportunity to be that. And guess what? The father only stayed 5 blocks away.
Wow.
But he never visited. He never visited. I'm going to bring a point up here, all right? In that situation, he was staying with his parents, right? He was staying with his parents. I would argue that part of the relationship challenges we have are culpable by extended family members, because they know when either mom or dad is involved in something, and they allow it to happen when they know they got children and they should be there for their children. All right, let me tell you where it raised its ugly head. Father died at 51. Well, he died at 51 with 10 sets of children. 10 sets of children, all right? And her cousin got up, the one who stayed 5 blocks away, all right, where her father was living, right, who was in a position to visit her father, and she stood up at his funeral and said that she loved him because he taught her how to drive.
Something so simple.
Right, and here's his daughter down the street, her and her sister, their dad, and she's hearing this at the funeral, and it just broke her heart.
That is painful.
All right, just broke her heart. And she said that the only way she got, and she would get into relationships, and none of the relationships would last. It's like the brother said, you carry that with you, and then it's hard for you to, really reconcile and have a good relationship with anybody else because you're still so torn and you're angry, and it comes out on the other person. But let me tell you what the solution was, all right? And it's a pregnant point again. She said until she got to the point where she forgave her father, right? Because, I'm a Christian, right? And so the Bible says, honor your mother and father. They didn't say honor your mother and father if they're, good. Yeah. All right? It says, why is that so important in the long haul?
Unconditional.
That's right. Let me tell you why that's so important. Because when it's unresolved, and a person's identity is affected. right? And so even if your father and mother are not good, you still should honor them, because if you don't, you're going to carry that baggage of your hate and your anger for your parents that God didn't bring you on earth to experience.
Wow. Okay. Number to call, 202-683-4570. Press star 5 to speak. You're tuned into the One Mic Show. We have Dr. Jeffrey Johnson live in studio. There's an upcoming conference that he's hosting next week in Silver Spring, Maryland, International Fatherhood Conference. You can find the details at Npcl, fathersandfamilies.org. That's Npcl, fathersandfamilies.org. So quite profound information that we're getting here. Now, Dr. Johnson, on the first day, again, there's of course the free part.
The free part, so you come to the free part, and there's also going to be a recognition of fathers in our opening ceremony.
Yes.
And we're gonna recognize 13 fathers who've been nominated by agencies who work with fathers, as we're gonna celebrate them as what we call favorite fathers of 2024.
Okay.
And these are fathers who are just doing the things that a responsible father should do, and we lift them up. It's interesting. I think that the way that we're wired as men, we're more givers than receivers. Matter of fact, we even get embarrassed sometimes when
we don't even expect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, but it's a good idea, particularly with Father's Day being around the corner, to honor our fathers and lift them up and let them know how important they are to families. Fathers matter. So that's how we start the conference, because we want everybody who comes to know why we're there.
Now, you talked about the name that you give to these fathers are role model fathers.
Right.
So, how do I know that I'm a role model father, or how do I know that I'm not a role model father?
I'm glad you said that, because a responsible father could be seen and heard. You can see it. It's a set of actions, right? He's present. All right. He's there to support. He does things with the child. All right. He reads with her. They play games together. They watch television together. They go to the park together, right? And then because he's engaged, all right? So one is that, here's what the research says. In order to be a responsible father, three things have to happen to define it. One, you have to have access, right? Because if you don't have access, right, you can't be dad.
Yeah.
All right? So that's number one. And that's a determination of how often you spend time with the child, how close do you live to your child, and how frequently you see your child. Access is important. Presence matters. Once you're present, you can engage. All right? And what does engagement mean? It means the things that you do when you're with your child. All right? It's not like a general, say, father involvement. Engagement means that you do some very specific things. You help them with homework. You read to them. You sing to them. You watch television with them. You go to places with them. These are these things that you can measure. And then the final is responsibility. And what does responsibility mean in a broader sense? All right, here it is. You ready for it? Fatherhood responsibility means everything short of birthing the child and breastfeeding.
Everything short of birthing the child and breastfeeding. So
that's fatherhood.
Okay. Let me
process. Let's process that.
Let me process this.
Everything
right.
from
everything short of breastfeeding and birthing the child.
Right.
So changing diapers.
Yep.
Walking.
Yes.
Cuddling.
Yes.
Sleeping. Putting her to sleep or him to sleep.
Right.
Walking. Feeding. Burping.
Wow.
Doing her
all
hair.
that.
Doing her hair. His hair.
His hair. Take him to the store.
Right.
Take him to the barber shop.
Exactly. You see, because once you
diaper,
have access,
there we go.
It's every, because see, the thing is, I think that because people often have to say, Doc, what is the difference between fatherhood and what's the difference between fatherhood and men? What's the difference between fatherhood and parenthood? I say men, and then they ask me what the difference between motherhood and a woman and parenthood. I say women, because father and women, men and women become parents. They become parents. And then when you look at the whole idea of parenting, what is parenting? Because a parenting is also a set of actions. It's things that you do, and it's also things that you are capable of doing. You're not capable of having a child as a man. All right, but here it is. You ready for it? Here's the crown jewel point. She can't get pregnant without you either.
Okay, all right. So it's a two. It's a
no. Listen to his last comment.
Listen.
Yeah.
She cannot get pregnant without you.
So
she needs your seed.
So we need a generation of pro-choice men or pro-choice fathers. In other words, we can decide who that mother is going to be instead of thinking of ourselves as so vulnerable when it comes to being around a nice-looking woman that you can't help yourself.
To support his point, to support his point, Dr. Johnson, I have an uncle. My uncle tells me that, and I think Mika is going to chime in and say something, that ultimately, the man has the responsibility of choosing his mate. No matter how you look at it, no matter how you dissect it, no matter what it is, it's the man who pursues.
Right.
It's the man who throws the first poyo, and poyo is the first words, whatever it is. It's the man who says, I'll take you out to date, I'll take you out for dinner. What do you like? It's the man who's buying flour. It's the man who does that. It's the man who tells his mom, this is the girl that I found. It doesn't matter if she's throwing red flags.
Right.
The family says this woman has got red flags.
Listen. And I have Lebola.
Lebola, that's South Africa.
Yes.
So in Kenya we call it mahari.
Exactly. So at the end of it, if anything goes wrong in that relationship, my uncle will never look at the woman. He'll look at the guy,
at the man,
and say, let us troubleshoot and let us do a forensic audit of your steps in this relationship. And he will pinpoint, you saw this red flag, you ignored. You saw this red flag, you ignored. So the responsibility is yours to have audited this relationship.
That's right. Because,
right or wrong?
You're right. Because,
thank you.
Look, because I understand the Egyptian mystery system, so I know about the Horus and Isis and Akhenaten. I know, so I've seen a virgin birth in the Egyptian mysteries. I've seen that, right? I've also seen it in the Bible. The immaculate birth, right? Other than those two things, some folks might say, what about Greek mythology? You have the Greek mythology have the virgin births too. Other than that, it's going to be a man and a woman. And here's the thing: a woman cannot have a child without a man. Period. Even if she goes down to the clinic and gets some of what he left down there, it's still coming from a man.
It's coming from a man, yeah.
Right? And so that it underscores your point, because it puts you in a position of saying that, if I behave properly and if I do the things I'm supposed to do, then it stands to reason that it's going to happen, with the woman. All right? And I do think that we have to, raise the bar of expectations to understand what manhood means for us, as men of African descent around the world. All right? Because I think that what's happening, and when I go across, the different countries around the world, what I see happening is some of the same things that are happening here, and then up to and including grandparents raising their children. Grandparents. I have a sister who is a fourth-generation grandmother, all right? And she has had to become the legal guardian for her grandchild and then the daughter of her grandchild.
Wow. Okay.
Right? And
great-grandchild.
And she's doing that today in her golden years. And she's not in the winter of her life, but she's certainly in the fall of her life. She may even say that she's in the Indian summer of her life. But the point is, right, she's doing that when she's supposed to be enjoying, kind of retirement in the peaceful time of being older. But see, grandparents, I don't care where you go, around the world, what you're seeing when we don't teach our young people how to be responsible parents, right? Responsible parents, and that's a modeling, right? What ends up happening is that the grandparents end up having to raise those children. It's interesting. Do you know, in terms of my book, Your Journey to Co-Parenting, the biggest consumers of that book have been grandparents. And so you might say, well, why does grandparents want your book, Your Journey to Co-Parenting? Because if their daughter or their son is in a relationship and they're not seeing their grandkids, they can't be grandparents.
Wow. Okay. All right. Now, here now is
no,
another.
we need a whole show for this.
We need a whole show for this, yes. But
we
here's
need a whole
another twist. Here's another twist as we get close to wrapping up, because the temperature here is rising, and I don't know, this place might blow up. But as we get close to wrapping up, I know there are many questions. We're going to read them. But this event will actually there will be an interfaith prayer breakfast at the event.
Yes.
Now, I personally have my own personal view
Yes.
on interfaith activities coming from a minority faith.
Yes.
But we're going to talk about that later.
Mm-hmm.
But you tell us, in this world of multiple faiths, including people that have almost lost faith in God, there are
Yes.
people who are almost openly saying that they're atheists, they no longer believe in God.
Right.
What does an interfaith approach in talking about fatherhood look to achieve with a group of people who...
So first of all, you know, what we hope to show is that religion is not dead. All right? It could be if you want it to be, but it doesn't have to be. All right? And just because it's not a popular thing, you know, say for folks who've been not in the faith tradition, it does not mean that it's not important. And what we have to do is have conferences like this that stand on a set of principles. All right? And the principles are, you know, working together, and a concept that's true in all faith traditions, and that is to show love towards one another. That's so important. The work I do, you know, in terms of my faith tradition, I'm loving my neighbor. I'm loving my neighbor, right? And so it's important for us to come together and show that we can work together, you know, because there are, you know, and we come at it in different ways through our faith expressions, but at the end of the day, it's all about, you know, our humanity, and it's all about how important it is to love one another, to work, make the world a better place. And a lot of young people have not got that because their parents have stopped because of some of the single parent issues, right? Because again, it's interesting, even in my church, you know, I want you to go back to some statistics I said earlier. 75% of African American children are born outside of marriage, right? Now I want you to transplant that to the various situations and institutions that they go to in their community. When they go to school, guess what? 75% of the children come from families. Black children are coming from families where
single parents.
Single parents. All right. Yeah. When they go to church, right? The same thing. At my church, we have a marriage ministry, right? But the marriage ministry is only serving what?
25%.
25%. Where's the parent ministry, right? And if you want to call from your faith tradition to say that single parent is sick and they need help, well, that's why they came in the first place. And and when they come and that's not offered, right? They may come, but they may not bring their children. And so I think that some of our traditions really get in the way, because I would argue, you know, from a spiritual standpoint, what is the mission field? All right, and the mission field is today's realities. You know, dealing with today's realities and really catching up, but at the same time holding on to those things that really made it possible for us adults to be who we are, and to show our young people that that's a way to go too. They have choices. It's all about choices. All right? But you got to bring them in those settings. You got to make sure that you respect their parents. You know, there's a quote that I always use. If you value children, you got to cherish their parents. If you value children, you got to cherish their parents.
Very important. Now, to me, the interesting thing that I get, because I come from a minority faith, and in Islam, there's a lot of specifics.
Yes.
You know, like in as far as like there's no room for guesswork.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of specifics on so many things, like on the role of a father.
Yes.
You know, like on the role of a mother. You know, like, and just on the household. So today I was going for my Friday prayers. Coincidence that the imam, the one who was giving the sermon today, was talking at some point about being a parent, you know, and was talking about married life. And he said the most interesting thing that he sometimes gets from people who are coming, you know, like they're looking to maybe divorce, and the reason is that we no longer love each other.
Okay.
And the very interesting thing he said, you know, like after, especially, you know, if it's a man who's saying that after a woman has born your children, you know, you have like 2, 3, 4 children, you've been together for 15 years. she's been loyal to you.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what you come
Mm-hmm.
and say that I no longer have the same butterflies I did
Mm-hmm.
10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is something because of the romanticization
Mm-hmm.
of what marriage really is.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are coming into it
Mm-hmm.
without understanding. So
Right.
there's the social media, the movie understanding of, it's sunsets and all these good times, but there's those day-to-day realities
Mm-hmm.
that people have, that we're gonna have moments where we are gonna feel like killing each other,
Mm-hmm.
and that's normal. Like if you're living with someone, you're with someone, like for extended periods of time, that's normal. I kind of feel like with the ramp that has been made very easy for divorce and the normalization of it,
Mm-hmm.
any minor disturbance,
Mm-hmm.
you came late two, three nights in a row, any minor disturbance
Yes,
that's
yes.
not earth-shattering,
Right.
people are already talking about divorce. And the other thing that I like about, like for me personally, my
Mhm.
faith culture is that there's what you feel,
Mm-hmm.
and what you feel could be wrong and it could be right. It's
Mhm.
not always right.
Mm-hmm.
But then we have these guardrails
Mm-hmm.
that tell us, even if this is what you feel,
Mm-hmm.
you have to look at the overall situation, like your overall family,
Right.
and like are you going to look at what your personal feelings are going to be
Mm-hmm.
and neglect the overall well-being of this whole setup that you've had for the last 15 years. So it's a very interesting perspective that we normally get from our faith, that we can have our personal feelings, but we always have somewhere to go back to that tells us, okay, this is how you feel right now, but go take a break
Mhm.
and then come back.
Well, let's see. I will say this: it's just in my picture, it's the same, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you have to do study,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you have to put yourself in a situation outside of what I might call a pastor. You might call it a mom,
Mhm.
right, or minister. Is that you have to translate the monologue into a dialogue,
Mm-hmm.
all right? Because you got to talk to other guys who are in a similar situation and hold up the values and the standards that your leader, your faith leader, discussed, right? Because to me, where it gets lost is that you'll go to and you'll hear the sermon, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you carry that for a week by yourself, and you haven't got with other guys to get their thoughts about it, who may be struggling with some of the same things, because we learn from one another.
Yeah.
All right. For example, at my church, I've been president of our men's ministry for 18 years. All right. So we talk as men. All right. We talk about the Bible. We also talk about things that are going on in our daily lives. Right. And I can truly say we're brothers. And I've been very intentional about that in trying to make us brothers, to share brotherly love with one another, and to be open to critique and understanding about certain things. All right, because in my faith tradition, iron sharpens iron, right?
Yes.
And so you have to put yourself in that. But that's a dialogue. It's not a monologue. You hear me? You hear me? It's not a monologue. It's a dialogue. And sometimes when I sit back at a sermon, I just wish we could stay over for a long period of time and say, let me tell you my thought on that. Tell me something different. All right. But that's not how it goes. You go in, you hear, and then you left. If you're like in a community of other men where you're talking about it and kind of coming to some resolution or some conclusion about what you've heard, you kind of do it on your own. And sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. All right. So, but I do think it's important to study, your faith tradition. In my faith tradition, it's the Bible, because the answers are there. You know what I mean? You've heard the expression, "There's nothing new under the sun." All right. And so these things have happened, for hundreds and thousands of years. We're just babies when it comes to that. But I do think that as adult men, we have to be very intentional about how we prepare our boys, and that how we work with the boys from single families. It's in rites of passage, because those boys get a chance to come in and, for example, we have a Father's Day program at my church. Same thing I do in my work life, I do at my church. And so we're going to have a big Father's Day, favorite father celebration, and we're doing it in collaboration with our boys in the Rites of Passage program. So they can understand and see a role model father and to be a part of the planning process. And so they're asking questions, right? Now, for example, one of the boys, I went and did a session on fatherhood, and someone asked him, a newspaper reporter asked him, what did you learn about fatherhood sitting in those sessions? He said, I learned what my father should be doing and what I should be doing as a father. All right.
Oh, wow.
And this kid was 8 years old, right?
Wow.
And so we got to expose them to those
100%.
things. But we got to be intentional about it. You can't leave it a chance. They're not going to get it from the YMCA.
Nope.
They're not going to get it from the boys club. You
No.
ready for this? They may not get it from church either, or from the mosque. You follow me? And so if we're not doing these things,
The home is the first place.
that's right. It's the first
Yeah.
place. But since home's not equal, you got to extend yourself.
Yeah.
Right. You got to extend yourself. To those boys who may not have a father figure in that home. All right, because they should know. It's like you've heard the expression. You know it. It takes a village to raise a child, but also takes a village to support parents.
Yes, that's true, especially for kids who do not have their father there, not by their choice. Maybe their dad passed away.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And again, I think that this is a discussion that we could have for 4, 5, 6 hours.
No, you're coming back.
There's so many ways to come at
Yes.
this. But the important thing is to understand is fathers matter, presence matter, and having healthy relationships between mother and father. Because see, co-parenting also happens in a marriage. Let me define it for you. Co-parenting is the equal division of duties and responsibilities when it comes to the care of your child. Whether or not in a marriage, outside of marriage, you still have to do it. Right? That's what it is. And it's important to do that as allies. So I'm using a war term, right? Allies in the trenches, all right? And to come over some of our selfishness when it comes to thinking about those things.
Yeah.
And if the relationship does not work out, having the ability to say that they wish that mother success and well
Wherever she goes.
And she does the same to him.
For the father.
Because that is the father of her child, and she is the mother of that child.
No matter what.
But you have to be taught that.
Yeah, because there's kids, some kids are very smart. They sometimes know how to play parents. If they know I cannot get this from mom, I will go to dad and I'm going to get it. But so there has to be that communication.
That's
and
co-parenting.
and that collaboration that if I've said no, let's let it be no. It cannot be, oh, dad said yes and
Right.
you said no.
Right. And, but again, I think that, just because we're not required to go to parenting school, it don't mean we shouldn't go. Right? It's just not a requirement. It used to be in the public schools here, they had family life education. They took that out of
They
the school.
took it out. Yeah, they took it out.
They took
Very
it out of the
sad.
schools.
Yeah.
And so this is where you would have these conversations. And so if there's not happening, we got to make it happen. And that's what people learn here at the conference, because when they leave the conference, they're going to go back to their communities and they're going to implement a lot of these ideas in their day-to-day lives. All right, this is what it's all about, because having the information and not going back and applying it and sharing it in ways that's going to transform communities. We don't want communities just to survive. We want them to thrive.
Yeah.
But the only way you're going to thrive is to understand what thriving means and to set high expectations for yourself. So even if you fall short, you still end up high somewhere. And so it's just so important to understand that and to let parents know that we're not going to cast aspersions on them as parents. We're going to love them, and we're going to be there to support them to be the best parents they could be under their circumstances. And we're going to help their children be all that God has intended them to be, to reach their highest human potential.
Amazing. Now, before we let you go, for those who are not in the DMV area but want to benefit from your organization, how can they get access to the content, for example,
Right.
that's going to be in the conference?
Right.
And just for the services that
They can
the
go to our
organization
website.
offers.
Our website is www.npclfathersandfamilies.org. www.npclfathersandfamilies.org. Our phone number is 202-600-7817, 202-600-7817. And we will make sure that if the call is made, that they will get a response, and that they can find out all that we're doing on our webpage.
Okay, and
website.
Is this both fathers and mothers?
Both
or-
fathers and mothers, because
Okay.
again, it's interesting because I'm pro-father. It does not mean I'm anti-mother. if I was a pro mother, didn't mean I was anti-father. We have to understand the importance of not picking and choosing which parent is the best. Both parents are needed in the same ways in which fathers bring children to the world. The mothers have, through his role in the pregnancy process, the mother bears the child, right? And so it's like the two go together, all right? And so in our work, you'll find that we work with mothers, and we teach mothers about motherhood. We also teach mothers about fatherhood. When we work with fathers, we teach fathers about fatherhood. We also teach them about motherhood, because the two go together.
Amazing. Now, 1997 when you started, and now we're in 2024. You've been doing this for almost 30 years.
Yes.
What's the one big difference between parenting in the 90s and parenting in 2024 that you feel like sometimes that the parents in the 90s do not understand the challenges 2024 parents experience?
You hit it on earlier. Cell phones and social media.
that requires a whole show.
That's right. You know what I mean? That's it. That's it. You know what I mean? Because it's interesting, because the generation my mother grew up in and dad grew up in, they didn't even have TV, and they used to talk about how the family came together around the radio and used to listen to the radio. I grew up as a TV kid, first generation TV. But listen, for those kids who were born, after 1997, they came into a world of
they went
internet.
online. Yeah,
exactly. Everything's changed. I remember when I got my first call from a friend of mine. He said, "You got your internet yet?" I said, "What is that?" And then he told me what it was.
Yeah.
I signed up on AOL, and AOL got old. But the point is that times have changed. But I would say that is the biggest difference. But the other thing that I realized too, and this is one thing that I've realized in the work that I do, the peer influence of children is still great, both through social media and in their environments. And we really have to understand what's going on in their schools, in their day-to-day lives, because there's a lot of gangs, right? Trust me when I say, do not underestimate the gang presence amongst the girls and boys in a lot of our school situations, right? And so this is, and a lot of times when gangs are formed, it's because and their recruitment comes out of the fact that the older gang members know that you coming from a broken situation, and they know, and their recruitment to you is that, if you come with us, we'll love you and protect you, but you also got to do some things that may cause you to be incarcerated, or may cause you to get killed, as just a way of being a part of the gang. And so we can't forget that. So there are a number of things there, but I do think that radio programs like this, and the content that you are allowing to happen is also a tool to educate and to raise awareness and to inspire people to think things in a different way, and to do things that's going to be for the betterment of our community, and that's important to acknowledge as well.
All right, that's Dr. Johnson, Dr. Jeffrey Johnson, CEO of Npcl. We're going to take, like a quick short break, just like a minute, don't go away. As we see Dr. Johnson out, he's very busy organizing, like the conference coming up next week. Mm-hmm. And we promise you that we are going to bring Dr. Johnson back on very focused, specific topics.
Yeah, because his manager, or person who's running things,
yes,
whatever, is around in the
He's
studio.
around.
Yeah. So she will make sure that
she will be scheduling that.
Yes, we are going to be scheduling that and working on that.
Yeah.
Yes.
On very focused, specific topics.
Yes.
Because I think one big difference that there is now, people who are fathers right now, is that a lot of people don't know places they can go.
Right. Exactly.
When they have questions.
Yes.
Am I being a bad father?
Yes.
By doing this?
Yeah.
Right.
Am I?
And the fight and the struggle and the misunderstanding.
And you should know there are a lot of fatherhood programs in the DMV.
Very interesting.
They're all around. What I mean, they're all around. Some of them supported the local government, some funded through private foundations, some of them funded through federal grants, and they're all around the DMV. I do this work all over the country. There are thousands of fatherhood programs across the country, but we're unorganized. One of the things we'll be talking about at our conference for the very first time is the whole idea of fathers, workers, and family life workers coming together in a more organized fashion to really share ideas and thoughts with one another, but also to advocate you know,
Yes.
for things, because right now we're just not organized. And I'm going to set that membership service up as part of my organization. The other thing we're going to do to make sure that the people like me who are probably nearing the age of retirement and will be doing something else, I'll probably be doing this until, you know, I go to the other side, is that we're setting up the very first historical National Responsible Fatherhood Mentoring Academy. And what we're doing is linking veteran fatherhood people like myself with people coming into the work, and to put them on the track of doing the work for 34 years, like I've been on for 34
Wow.
years. But you got to be
Amazing.
very intentional about that.
Mhm.
You know, you can't leave that stuff to chance. And I just so happen to have the posture in the fatherhood community to be able to rally folks and bring them together from the White House, from Congress, from, you know, from neighborhoods, grassroots neighborhoods, come together under one umbrella like the conference and to talk about these things. And we're going to be doing it at this conference as well. But the Mentoring Academy, and what we're calling it is practitioners for fathers and families. We are a group of professionals organized to foster and positive father engagement and also healthy relationships in families. But in order to provide these services, it takes resources. So if you have the resources, there has to be policies in place, at least on that side. But also, you know, we want the business community and the private foundation community to understand their role in the process too, because a happy family man is also a productive worker.
A happy family man is a productive worker. So you had it all. Thank you so much, Dr. Johnson. And of course, like I said, we will organize this. So, Mike, please take us to a quick short break.
Yes, we'll take a quick short break.
Yeah, just 1 minute. Don't go away. We're going to be right back. And what are we going to be talking about? President Ruto's White House visit. What do the Americans want from Kenya? They made us what was called a major non-NATO ally. What exactly does that mean?
There are two countries with that distinction also. Isn't that,
No,
the Emirates?
in Africa.
In Africa, okay.
No,
so.
in Africa.
Okay,
in
okay,
Africa,
okay,
I
okay.
think
The one is,
there's a North African country.
yeah,
There's a
and-
couple of countries who
Okay,
have
so-
that tag.
Yeah.
But what exactly does it mean? You know, like when the White House is whining and dining us for a whole week. What is it that was not said?
Are we being prepared for slaughter?
Yes, that they want.
We'll be right back.
Yes, we're going to figure that out. So stay tuned. Keep it locked.
Lakini hawa vijana vile msaada, umetulinda, umetufariji. Kama mama umetulea, sisi watoto tumezaliwa Nairobi.
Fun tonight, we'll party till it's light. He's feeling good, looking good, got all the girls alright. Then from across the room, she's moving to his tune. Easy come, easy go, disasters in the room. Her eyes gleam at the sight of his paycheck. In 3 weeks, she's maxing out his Amex. He's starting to see her through her pretext. Run to the door, don't look back, no, no. There's fools in life, I was taught that by my mother. So instead I'm gonna choose my life. Won't put my heart out in the gutter. Oh, there's fools in life, I was taught that by my mother. So instead I'm gonna choose
with you. A diploma brand new. Her only worldview is innocence.
All right. Welcome back. You know, like it's been a long time since we took a break, but welcome back to the One Mic Show.
Yes, we apologize for that.
Yes,
people.
yes. So that was a session with Dr. Jeffrey Johnson of the National Partnership for Community Leadership, NPCL. They will be having a conference next week, so make sure you check out their website and register for the conference. Very profound issues that were brought up in that conversation. Now, before like we get to the conversation today, because I know a lot of people have a lot to say about the trip last week, President Ruto being hosted by the White House. But just to talk on that issue of being parents and co-parenting, I think in our age group and younger people, I think that concept of like a child needing both a father and
It's
a mother,
very important.
it's important, but
Very.
I think it's not like people have not realized the importance of that. And I understand not everyone can live in a marriage couple setup, but I think just that importance of having the presence of both the father and the mother to the well-being of a child. I think that's something that needs to be nurtured more. Mika, Mika,
Amekimya sana
unatusikia?
huyo msee.
Umekimya sana. Hiyo story ulionaje?
Your story, as in the way I listened to it, as in it was very insightful. And I guess one thing that I can say, adding up to what you've said, is that I think the major issue that most people do is they involve their personal romantic feelings into parenthood. So you find that somebody is mad at their partner, and they use the child as a weapon against the other person, and you use ways to hurt the other person. Those who are withholding the child, those who use the child as a weapon to fight the other person, those who poison the child against the other person. It's like you can have a problem with somebody, but you guys are parents to this child. That is what should be a first priority when it comes to that child. Whatever issues you have with the other person, deal with that between the two of you. Don't avoid kids.
Okay.
If we realize a lot of that, most of us will be very good parents to our kids.
Okay, and I always tell people, and me, one thing for me, personally, I'm never ever gonna be an advisor on relationships, on marriages. There are people who are experts in doing that, but I'll always tell people, like once you're in a setup where you either have kids together or you're married and you're living together, your personal feelings or your personal, how do I put it, your personal, let me not say needs, maybe needs is not the right word, but your personal feelings, that's not the most important thing, because I think we live in a selfish world today where we're told it's about me and me. But I think at the point where like you're married, you have children, not saying that you should not take care of yourself, but that can no longer be the most important thing at making decisions. My wife amejiachilia, so I'm now looking elsewhere because of that. I think that's something that needs to be tamed. And then there's the issue of social media that has become the reality, whereby people, rather than seeking advice from people or institutions that are experts in these things, they go to social media. You see these posts like, oh, these are the 10 signs to know that he no longer loves you. Or it's just some random person on YouTube.
You're gonna get Mika and Omosh started.
Yeah, these are the 10. If you see him doing this, or if you see her doing this, she's definitely cheating on you, or she's definitely doing this or that. And people believe those things, unfortunately.
they are beholden
Yeah.
to those as.
Put me on a podcast. I got something to say.
Yeah, but Stephen JJ here says that was a powerful segment.
You know, and I know we are short of time, but again, I will always say this. As much as, and I'll say this, for the parents who try to restrict their kids from seeing the other parent, at one day in time, you best
He'll
believe
bite you in the ass.
one day in time, and I can tell you from experience, that particular child will go out looking for the other parent.
Yeah, blood is thicker.
That is for sure.
Blood is thicker.
And by the way, I'm not even gonna. There's me. I did that, and I'm just a regular Jama. Ray Lewis, Hall of Fame linebacker, Baltimore Ravens, alienda kutafuta baba yake. We hear these stories over and over again, where the child looks for the parent. Dr. Johnson just told us.
Let me give you an
matter.
example.
Yeah.
Let me give you an. You see, for us Luyas, we are very paternal community. Like kwetu Waluya wachangi
Amwachi watoto.
watoto wao ubaki. But do you know the funny thing is what? Wewe ulifukuza mama yao ukigalia vijana wako shamba, the first thing they do is they build their mama house wanamrudisha. Na utasema kitu.
No, nothing. Absolutely.
Uliwagawia shamba. You see, so that because of that, it led to a lot of, like, even if things are bad, hakuna animosity when it comes to parenthood, because you will take these kids away from this other parent, but they'll always have questions.
Always.
That they
always.
want answered, and they will look for those answers.
Yeah.
And if they find those answers, are you going to be a villain?
Left in the dark.
Are you going to be a hero?
Yeah.
Hapo hiyo ndo swali unafaa kujiuliza. No matter how much problems you have with the other parent, hiyo ni nyi watu wawili, romanticism mlipendana ikakataa,
imegonga
dilini
ukuta
na hiyo kivi yenu.
Yeah.
But uzazi ni kazi yenu.
Unaambiwa
Vile
unaambiwa
Dr. J amesema ni job yenu. Vile mlianza hivi, like unachakua demu na kwa wazazi.
Yeah.
Uzazi ni kazi yenu. Hiyo ingine shauri yenu, mtadili nayo kivi yenu. Nyinyi watu wakubwa, mkipendana mlikuwa mnajua mnafanya nini.
Omosha amekuwa dos.
Yeah, na unaambiwa usitukane ukunga na uzazi bado ungalipo. Yeah, so remember
translate that for Mosh.
Yeah, so remember, if you're a parent, like your father, you have a daughter, or you're a mother and you have a son. One day this son will grow up, and the same way you treated you treated the father of the son, one day your son is gonna be in a position
To be treated
where he will be treated the same way. And this also goes to fathers.
It's both ways.
With daughters.
Yes.
Like the same way you treat the mother of your child, one day your daughter will grow up. And come on, these things happen.
I'm telling you.
Yeah. So be very, very mindful.
No matter what. Mkikosana ni sawa.
Yeah.
Yes.
Be very, very mindful. Especially wanaume. Hata kama umepata side chick.
That's fine.
Hata kama umepata nini on the side that you feel is much better than what you had previously.
That's fine.
Just remember one fact that you can never change. That this woman is a woman who bore your children.
Kweli.
That will never change.
If you have any kid, if you have a daughter, would you want your daughter to be treated the way you're treating whoever it is?
Yeah.
If you have a son, would you want your son, when he gets a mama, to be treated the way you're... No.
Yeah.
Vitu zingine. Mambo ni long game.
Yeah. So hapa Esther Mulusa anasema some experts also mislead people using sexist doctrines. One said that women who don't drop their father's names cause problems in marriage. Hyphenated names are wrong. Do you know women who don't drop their father's names? All Muslim women. Waislamu, you are not required to take... Actually, you're not supposed to take your husband's name. you keep your father's name. And this is very unusual, especially here in America, where the culture is Mr. and Mrs. X, Mr. and Mrs. Y. So there's always questions that are sometimes asked, oh, kwa nini, and I think watu wa immigration wamekuja kujua who are these people who give papers, what are they called? ICE. Now they know that especially people from Muslim cultures, they don't drop that name. So you'll have a husband and a wife, but they don't have the same last name. And you'll have a mother and the child, but the child will take the father's name. But you'll have a mother and a child, and they also don't have the same last name. So very interesting.
Yeah.
So alafu Junoburu anasema repeat that statement at the next men's conference. Sasa sijui ni statement gani. I don't know the new statement ya Muslim women don't take the husband's name, or rather ni statement the mother of the mother of mbona kizungu leo inanichanganya.
It's okay.
But you know what I mean.
No, I don't. Omosh amekimia sana.
Yeah, the mother of your child. Yeah, that can never change.
No.
Yeah, regardless of when upate sijui dem gani huko.
The mother of your child is the mother of your child.
Yeah.
And
she should always be respected.
Just as, inshallah, that the father of your child, hopefully DNA comes out 100 out of 100, is the father of your child. Upende usipende.
The mother of your child is the mother of your child. The father of your child, that can be.
No. You as the mother, you bought the child.
Yeah.
The father.
Yeah, the father. That
DNA. It could be
debatable.
No, DNA ifanywe.
Yeah.
Mtoto akizaliwa. But that's a very for another day.
Semantics mingi.
Oh, the father of the child, 75% chance. Hapa Dr. Jeffrey Johnson alisema.
No.
Hapa tunaongea ndio assumptions na tumezaa mnajua ndo wazazi wenyewe. At the end of the day, the person who mwenye mmezaa na yeye, you have to respect each other.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
No, it's true.
Okay.
If it's DNA wise, if it's your child, but Ali.
Yeah. Let's go now to the topic of the day. Now, last week Kenya's president was in the U.S. on official invitation by President Biden's White House. And tonight we want to review his trip from Atlanta to D.C. and what the diaspora and Kenya got out of it. Of course, our correspondent DJ Bushfire was in Atlanta. He was meant to be there for exactly 2 days. We only paid him for 2 days. But this is, I think, 2 weeks later. And Omosh is still in Atlanta. Because you're supposed to go to Atlanta, record the happenings there, report back, and then go to the happenings in D.C. But he stayed, and he stayed.
Alienda Atlanta.
Yeah.
Akapiga selfie. Na akakwama huko.
Okay.
Alipatiwa brown envelope.
Now, tuanze na Atlanta. Tyler Perry Studios. Ama Omosh, just get us started because we were not there.
So just give us play-by-play, bro.
Just give us a brief scenario of what happened in Atlanta and maybe what those of us who missed out did not get. DJ Moshfire.
I took a selfie. Nilipewa brown envelope. Hamutapata kitu. And I'm quitting the show. Oh, well.
Wow.
So the president landed on Monday. So the event I was going to was on a Tuesday, and so he landed on Monday. As part of that, he was received by the mayor, akaenda Coca-Cola. He had a couple of other things that he was doing within Atlanta, and then the other thing that he did. So then the next day, the other thing that he did. So the guy's schedule was very packed, by the way. So the next day was the day that we, as creative, so this was a creative, I guess I'd call it symposium, or creatives meet the president at Tyler Perry Studios. And the people who came and who I ended up seeing over there, I found Kenyans who were in Hollywood, musicians, actors, folks who are producers, people who are making films, writing films. There was a bunch of folks. I was like in awe. There's some people who even you just hear about and you end up seeing, and I end up meeting all these folks. So it was a good networking opportunity. But the whole gist of everything that was going down at this particular thing with the Tyler Perry Studios thing was we sat down and I would venture to say we had a meal with the president and some folks. It was a very intimate setting, about 20 people plus some of the people on his entourage. Safaricom CEO was there. We had governors from different areas, Waiguru, what's her name?
Homa Bay Governor. Gladys Wanga.
The one from Homa Bay. Why is she now? Jinake Sasa
Wanga.
And that's my Wanga was there.
Yeah.
My DVD was there. There was folks from the Diaspora Affairs, State Department of Diaspora Affairs. There were people over there as well. I actually happened to be sitting next to one of the folks from there, who's former ambassador of Kenya to SA, and I think she had said Brussels or something like that, but works now with the Diaspora Affairs section. But this part had been arranged. Steve Harvey is actually the guy who came and received the president on behalf of Tyler Perry. Steve Harvey happened to be shooting Family Feud at Tyler Perry Studios, and apparently had been there shooting for about 3 months. And then he was going to take his show on the road, go to SA, shoot in Cape Town, Johannesburg, and now added Kenya because of this particular visit. So I guess if somebody were looking at, is this a plus or a minus? That's a plus to me, if you ask me. The whole thing was to have partnerships between Kenya and say Tyler Perry Studios to try to set up something similar in Kenya. So think of it this way: we have Nollywood, we have the SA guys also doing their thing, but in between there's nothing. So if Kenya can come up, get their act together, and make the environment user-friendly, conducive, then you would end up finding a lot more people coming to Kenya. Now, that would mean you have to set up somewhere that's state-of-the-art. You have the equipment, you have the actors, you have people who can come in as extras, so that if folks are coming to shoot and it's something that you need to have an African scene, you don't have to go and shoot it, I don't know, in the wild, or come up with what is it called, the green screen type of stuff, or AI, or whatever you want to call it. You actually can come into Kenya and shoot those scenes as well. If all the actors or the script is an African script, or Afrocentric script, you can actually do that in Kenya. That potentially is the direction that they wanted to head with this, and form some sort of partnership with Tyler Perry Studios. So we're probably going to hear more to come on how that is going to work out, but that was the gist of what was happening, as well as for the president to get to meet folks who are in the creative industry, have kind of like a question and answer session, or more or less like you say, hey, we have folks who are doing this, here's where we are seeing that we're having problems, whether it's with distribution of monies via, say, the different bodies that we have in Kenya, MCSK and stuff like that, folks, so how is that gap being bridged, so that people who are in the creative industry are being sorted, are being looked after, as well as, going anywhere from how the ICT sector is getting hit to, going all the way to things like AI generation and different aspects that hit the creatives. And by creatives is pretty much, think of it as anybody who does things creatively, whether you're a sculptor, whether you're somebody who draws, whether you're somebody who's in film, you're acting, you're a DJ, you're a producer, you're a host of a show. All these folks were there, and I did meet different people. For one, friends of the show, Top Down was there, by the way, at that particular event. And it was very interesting that this was culminating on the second day that we were there, when day one, there was an expo that was going all week long in Atlanta. And this expo had, it was a trade expo. So they had folks who came in from Central Bank.
Now, Omosh, before we get to the trade expo, I think let's just, first of all, stick to the Tyler Perry Studios. because I mean, there was a lot of pictures that we saw.
Correct.
And we saw, like some influencers and personalities from Kenya within the movie space or the movie industry, and in just the production space. What I'm trying to make sense of is so they said that we're looking for partnership with Tyler
Yes.
Perry Studios. I'm just trying to think in terms of, from what you saw, like whatever partnership this is, how exactly is it helping a struggling actor, for example? There's a lot of those in Kenya, struggling creative, like how, because I'm still, like, is a studio being built? Is this studio gonna be available to anyone who wants to go make film? Like, that's something that, from my perspective, I've tried to see the different things that were being said, but it still did not register with me. So that's where I'm trying to think in terms of the average guy, not Butita. I'm trying to think of the average actor in Kenya who's struggling, like out there to make ends meet.
So there were some people who actually got up to speak. One of the guys who got up to speak was a guy who's from Innovative Studios, which is basically he's the producer of Severance, which is on Apple. And the guy is actually a graduate of University of Nairobi. So he has things that he does both in Hollywood as well as in Nairobi. So he's one of the guys who got up to speak and has been working closely with Office of the President in hand in try to set up something where, say, like you said, that struggling actor ama tuseme wale watu waenda pale National Theatre kufanya maset books, you would have an ability to act in movies, to be seen, to have a space where your creativity can be unleashed, as well as for you to get paid. And so this particular partnership, the way I saw it, would be that it would open up that space and make it wide. Because think of it this way, the second largest studio other than Hollywood in America right now is Tyler Perry.
Okay.
So people may not want to acknowledge that, but he has the second largest studio outside of Hollywood.
Okay.
So when you look at what that means in terms of what he has set up, what it takes to set up that type of environment, and you have access to him, free, untethered access, which, by the way, I don't know if you know this, Ali, but the Kenyan ambassador, the U.S. ambassador to Kenya, Meg Whitman, used to be in Hollywood. Before she went to tech, she was in Hollywood.
She was an actor?
No, she had actually set up.
You don't have
studio.
to be an actor to be in Hollywood, bro.
So she had actually set up a studio, and her studio failed.
Okay.
So think of it as something like DreamWorks. So they had set up something like DreamWorks.
Yeah.
So it was her and another guy, and that other guy, I forget his name, but whoever that guy is, he's the one who had the connect to Tyler Perry, and that's how this particular meeting and this whole thing was put together. So this was actually her brainchild. In fact, she was the moderator for the speakers and brought in different people to come in and speak. One of those guys, like I told you, was a guy of that Innovative Studios. There was also some lady, Ali, I think you might remember this lady's name. She used to be a CNN anchor, Pat Mitchell. She actually spoke as well. And then the other thing about Atlanta in general is Atlanta has about 13 studios that have been set up, because Atlanta as a city has made it user friendly for those big studios to come in because of the tax incentives that they're giving them. For instance, Lionsgate has also just finished setting up in Atlanta.
Okay, all right. A couple of comments coming in here.
When you look at the totality of what is possible, again, I will always look at these things with doubt until I see something on the ground. Meaning, before I see you guys, like just like the question that you asked is, where is this going to happen? When is this going to happen? This is just, things that you're throwing at us to let us know that you're doing something or you're thinking of the creatives. There is a possibility of doing this. There's that space. There are people who actively have been doing things and working within the office of the president. For instance, Steve Harvey committed to bringing his show, Family Feud, to Kenya.
Now here is where like doubts start kicking in. I know Steve Harvey has already been in South Africa, and he's also
Correct.
done Family Feud in Ghana, and then they said he will come to Kenya. So will
Correct.
he come to Kenya to visit and have a good time, or is he actually coming to Kenya to set up Family Feud in Kenya?
He said he was coming to shoot Family Feud in Kenya, and for him, what he said was that when he first brought up that concept of shooting Family Feud in Africa,
yeah.
or in the continent, as he called it, everybody laughed at him. They were like, "This is not gonna work. Forget it. This, in fact, this is a waste of time." And it's almost like folks were just like walking away from him. And he proved that it's possible for that to occur. So he's actually going to do that. He's gonna do it in, like you said, he's gonna do the same. He'll come in and he wants to shoot Family Feud there. Now, between now and the time that things are supposed to happen, which I think he said around September, they will see what they put into place and what is going to be required. And I'm sure he's going to have, probably those minimum requirements, have this, have that, blah, blah, blah. And of course, kama kuna equipment and all sorts of those things are already there on the ground. You don't have to ship all those things with you. Again, I'm pretty sure that the industry in SA wako na hizo vitu. Same thing I would think in Ghana, possibly wako na hizo vitu. And if you bring things in, you just bring in kidogo. And even maybe if you have to bring things into Kenya, maybe zinaletwa Kenya and with the agreement that pengine watu wa Kenya wanazibai. I don't know. I'm just assuming.
Okay.
But he has committed to coming to Kenya. So not only would he come in, like you said, as mtu anakuja holiday, but anakuja shoot Family Feud. That was the goal. So to me, I think that's a win and a plus, if you ask me. And if a guy like Steve Harvey can come into Kenya and do things like that, it probably would open up for other folks who are also in film, who are in music, and other creative areas to come in, because Kenya now is quote unquote user friendly and or open for business, and you're not getting black taxed out of coming into Kenya.
You're not getting taxed.
Go ahead.
You're not getting taxed to come into Kenya.
I was calling it black taxed.
Okay.
That's what I was calling it. Basically, if somebody is going to say, okay, nipe kitu kidogo, before we allow you to come in, you'll be like, why am I going to do that? And I can go to Zimbabwe, So it's really, at the end of the day, the environment needs to be friendly and open for business before somebody's gonna come in and bring in, a multi-million dollar project that is gonna hinge on you giving kitu kidogo to some funny chap. I don't know if that's making sense, but bottom line of it is the environment, starting from the top, is saying we are ready and we are open. Come.
Okay.
That's what they're saying.
All right. Steven JJ hapa anasema Omosh alipanda Boeing ya Ruto. Omosh, please don't lie about his ATL. And then Udi anasema, how come ATL Kenyans were not invited? And then Udi
to what?
Lisa,
to the creatives.
I don't know.
What is he talking about?
Maybe Udi tell us,
Yeah,
what
Udi
exactly.
to tell us. But I want to answer Udi. I think maybe Udi means, and I'm not sure if he's talking about the Tyler Perry studio, because unless Udi can tell me, Udi is not a creative. But let me move past that. But going back to invitation and or communication from the diaspora, the State Department of Diaspora Affairs, my opinion is that they have the worst communication ever. So if you're not in a chama, you're not in a church group, or you're not registered with the Kenya Embassy, or you don't follow them on Twitter, you're not going to know what's going on. And unless somebody can come out and tell me something different, those are the 4 different ways that you'll find out what's going on with the State Department of Diaspora Affairs. And to me, they need to do a better job of reaching their constituents, who is us in the diaspora. And oh, by the way, did you guys know that there's actually a diaspora rep in the state of Georgia?
Huh?
Iko.
He doesn't represent. He represents people in Georgia.
He or she?
No.
He represents people in Georgia.
The guy, apparently, this guy is based in Georgia, na ni wa diaspora affairs nini, and paid by ministry. Again, this is information that was coming to me, and I'm like, huh?
Well,
what?
Well,
Who?
I can tell you
How?
for sure.
Where?
What's his name?
Does he have a name? Okay.
I think it's called Donga or something like that.
DJ Donga.
But anyway, no, CEO Donga wetu ni Donga mgine. But all I'm trying to say is that these things that are happening, even as we speak right now, the diaspora, the State Department of Diaspora Affairs, is in country doing things. Ali, do you know where they are?
Someone told me they're in Nebraska. That's someone told me Nebraska or Idaho, one of those states. But
yeah.
But again, like
so we don't know who the diaspora representative is. Let's start there. And whoever it is, they better to show themselves.
I think they represent the people of Georgia, Kinaudi, because
yes,
we don't know who he is
or she.
There's a lot of harshness that happens when it comes to things that, in my opinion, are things diaspora affairs related. But if you're not in these chamas or church groups, you don't know about them. Mika, go ahead. See, near diaspora rep.
Okay.
So
based out of is supposed to be a diaspora rep based out of Atlanta, which means my assumption is again he's a representative of the diaspora, quote unquote,
appointed
via Uko is from Uko office yao. So yeye kazi yake ni kufanya vitu on behalf of hawa wase. But you and I, we don't even know how to get to this particular person.
Is he a diasporan? Is he a diasporan or was he sent from Nairobi?
No. Ni msewa huko.
He's not
a diasporan. As far as I understand, he's not a diaspora.
Okay.
So again, to me, I would venture to say that they are, as is, if somebody is giving marks out of a scale of 1 to 10, I would give them a 2.5.
Wow.
Because their communication is the worst.
A 2.5 out of 10 is very generous.
No, and the only reason I'm giving them a 2.5 is because if you go to their Twitter feed, you might see something about a session that's coming tomorrow. If you go now.
Okay.
So again, at least it's there, quote unquote. But if you go to the embassy website, which has, by the way, a live Twitter feed of foreign affairs, I think there's 2 other departments that they have in there. The state diaspora does not have a live feed.
Okay. All right.
On the embassy page.
Let me read a few comments here. And these are some older comments. Udi alikuwa anauliza Omosh, what envelope did Ruto give you? Udi leo. And then Washeke anasema, were there any Kenyan producers at the studios? I think Omosh, you said there were only 20 people at the studio.
We were 20 people, but there were Kenyan producers over there.
Okay. Right.
Ali Shiro was there. She's a producer. There were other people, and also that was an opportunity for folks who are in the industry who, let's say for instance, Ali, you've done a film, okay? Now you're at the point where you want to distribute this film. If you don't have a network or know how to go about doing the distribution, sometimes it can take you about a year for this movie of yours to be launched. Now, just by going and talking to some of these people, you found out jamaa akona distribution na najua wase, you exchange your information there, and maybe within 3 to 6 months your movie is being distributed, and you're not distributing it when it's what would I say, cold, so to speak.
And then Udi was saying let me see. Esther says Kenya should be like North Carolina, where many films are shot because of the terrain and landscape. And then Patrick's anasema Azimio mouthpiece in USA abruptly praising while glorifying Kenya Kwanza Ruto. Ni kweli human beings are interesting. I don't know where that comment is coming from. Patrick's maybe elaborate. Fafanua,
who's the Azimio mouthpiece?
Supposedly must be me.
Fafanua your statement.
And
then
maybe my name betrays me.
Yeah, your name definitely betrays you. And then Esther Mulusa says Hollywood studios on Hollywood Street are as old as Odeon Cinema in Nairobi. And Odeon, I think, at some point became a church. It's no longer a cinema. And even
No, Shan Cinema is the one that became a church.
even Nairobi Cinema became a church.
Allah.
Yes, Nairobi Cinema became a church. And then let me see. Udimadenge says we sent our forms to the embassy. So and then Udimadenge, Kwani, I have to go to church. I think this is in regards to
Yes.
Yeah.
Udi, you have to belong to a chama, a church group, or
Yeah.
send or
To get-
register
To
with
get
the embassy.
information.
That's the only way you're gonna be contacted.
okay.
Last if you forget it.
And then Washeke asked, what does his responsibilities entail? How can we reach him? How does he add value, assist us? I think this is the so-called diaspora rep in Georgia. We're going to find out more about
I
that.
don't know the person.
And then let me see. Washeke is asking Patrick, who is the Azimio mouthpiece? Now, okay, Patrick, maybe to Eleze. And then Patrick is telling me you are giving this man too much time. He keeps interrupting you.
Huh?
And
Just
then,
lost and confused.
yeah, and then Doreen Florence anasema, why is that diaspora rep stationed in Georgia? So
That's
you know,
a
like,
good question. I'm even wondering
know.
why
So-
Vivo came to Georgia.
so
But what do I know?
So I don't know. I have no idea. But yeah, but it is what it is. You know, like we at this point. You know, like I'm at a point where this thing called diaspora unity, or having one representative who represents the whole of diaspora, we become a very big community. That can no longer work.
No.
We have to find more creative ways of delivering services to people, rather than trying to find pockets of people you like and working with them. To me, the State Department of Diaspora, if they're listening, they went to fix something that wasn't broken. It wasn't perfect, but it wasn't broken. You know, like the embassy had established a way of trying to reach people who are out here in the US. And it seems like the State Department of Diaspora Affairs has totally put the embassy aside. Yet the embassy is they're the ones that are here permanently. And they tried to build something from the ground up. This is not working. Uno Mike,
Yes.
pia wewe umenyamaza sana.
No, I mean, like over here, like Pablo is saying, I second the view by DJ Omosh pertaining to communication, because it sucks. And it's not just in the diaspora,
Yeah.
and when it comes to matters diaspora, like even in Kenya. I mean, you've heard even people complain like, okay, if the government is doing something and it's something positive, they don't say it. Is it a knee-jerk reaction? There's never usually communication coming out.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, you know, for example, the floods that happened, El Nino. How long did it take the government to react? Even to come out with a presser and say, you know what, it's a disaster, we are claiming it to be a disaster, this is what we are going to do. Did you hear any communication?
Now, when we come back to the diaspora, remember
Yes.
the diaspora policy. So
What
there was a diaspora policy. It was, I think it was announced, released on Twitter, and the PDF was circulating on WhatsApp groups within a very short time, and we're being told this is the diaspora policy, not knowing, you know, like where it came from. And then now there's a process that Pablo showed us that they're doing right now that's called validation of that diaspora policy.
What are you,
And they're already doing Zoom meetings across different parts of the world. And that to them
it's a validation though.
is what they call public
Full
participation.
Boss, don't even go far. Election. What happened?
The same thing. Now that was IBC.
No, but still, because remember, they're an arm of government that are supposed to communicate, because government says, okay, you know what, you go and manage my challenges when it comes to voting.
Yeah.
Again, these guys, the communication is just poor.
Yeah, so Pablo is saying, I second the view of DJ Omosh, the GOK communication sucks. However, since that has been an open issue for long, I would suggest people go to websites and social media sites to get info. Saa zingine taking that extra step ni poa. And then Sambaza Podcast says, remember the meeting we were in with the ambassador on Zoom, and it was noted that they were looking for people of Chama's red flag. Now, here's one reason why I will never ever register for those
Chamas.
those validations and these things, because all these meetings that they want you to attend, they're asking you for registration. One reason why I'm never gonna attend them, for me personally, I'm not telling you not to attend. Please feel free and attend them. Me, I'm gonna look for a session where they're not asking for my registration information. This information, and I know this may be premature, this information is probably, because I think the State Department of Diaspora Affairs, they are more keen on collecting information. Where is this information going, and what is it being used for? What exactly is it being used for?
Investment purposes, Ali.
Forget about
by
even
the way,
investment.
there is a flyer that they also had at that at the expo, and I'm holding it right here in my hands. And it's really, they call it an FAQ, but when you look at it, the most that they're talking about here is about remittances, information about trying to do investments, you know. And then there's one question over here that that Ali knows about here, and it's very simple. Are there scholarships or financial aid available for students wishing to study abroad? And they basically say that the State Department does not offer scholarships, but can guide Kenyans. So basically, those things do not exist. But we know kuna wale upewa. Go ahead, Ali.
Yes, so as far as the information is concerned, and for me, just I go based on experience and things that I've seen before. I highly suspect, and this is suspicion, so nobody go out there and quote me. I highly suspect this is information that they want to use, because now diasporans can vote. They will use those same channels to campaign with people in the diaspora. And unfortunately, that's why I'm saying you can have these sessions without necessarily all the time forcing people to register. Anything small, register. And then the details they want your email. Okay, email is understandable.
Okay.
They want your phone number. You know, in some cases, they're even requesting for your address. And I'm like, no. I'm not, like sharing that information. Just publish this information. If it's a meeting that you have, do those meetings. Maybe the people who want to be on the live meeting, yes, you will have the information, but publish this stuff. Make it available for everyone else to watch and decide whether there's any value for them to join the next meeting and add the information.
Yeah.
This is very problematic.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know.
But you see, like here's another thing also. Like, even if you collect data, again, it's not even safe, because there's the data protection policy that is going on. We don't even know, like with KRA going on right now with the finance bill. Who, by the way, guys, you need to check out Jimmy Wanjigi's interview. But we don't know, because now, like, the proposal is, what KRA has got would have free access to your bank account, your KRA information, or you as a person.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, that's
That's
but
it.
anyway, going back to this trip to ATL, Umoshi said that there was a business expo. Just briefly,
A trade expo.
A trade expo,
And it was more, I would call it a trade expo. Because they had different people. They had people in textiles, they had folks in ICT, they had, of course, the State Department for Diaspora Affairs was there as one of the folks who are doing, I guess, as a vendor or exhibitor. They had Central Bank of Kenya in there as well. Our friend from Wire was there as well. He was one of the guys who was a vendor or exhibiting there, and they also had some breakout sessions where they had breakout sessions for ICT, for textiles, for creatives, and it was a week-long affair. Started Monday, ended on Friday, and off of this expo on day one, that's when the president came to speak to Kenyans at the end of this expo, pretty much on day one, and we ended up having dinner with the president, meaning kulikuwa na chakula. All the people who went there were fed. In fact, there was a lot of food. I would say, based upon what I could see, it was anywhere between 800 to 1,000 Kenyans. I don't know what the actual real figures were, of the people who were there, and we were all seated in round tables of I think 10, so to speak. But it was a big, huge hall, or a conference center, so to speak, and that's where there was a question and answer session. And President Ruto, gave folks in the diaspora an opportunity to ask questions. He was also giving back his feedback. One of the larger things or questions that were asked there was about taxes. But before I go too far, I'll go back to you, Ali.
Okay. So
Umeogopa Patrick atakwambia unaongea sana.
No, si hivyo, because Ali aliuliza juu ya expo, lakini nimeenda nikaingia pali Zakaria alikuwa anaulizwa story ya taxes.
okay. Now, and maybe we need to get people who benefit from such events, because for me personally, when I'm thinking of the average diasporan. I'm not necessarily thinking of maybe those of us who are so engaged with these events. I'm just thinking of the average diasporan who's on his grind daily. Like, whenever these events are set up, do they have that person in mind? I'm talking about the middle 90%, not the top 10% who are fully engaged, who want to go back to Kenya. I'm just talking about the average diasporan who's here. Or are these events geared towards a few money diasporans who want to take their money back to Kenya, and also geared towards to how much more money can we milk from diasporans to remit to Kenya? Omosh.
I think overall, it's geared towards diasporans. Now, which category you fall in is dependent upon you and what you're trying to accomplish, right? So, for instance, let's just take it. Central Bank of Kenya had come in, and they are one of the people who are presenting there, and they're telling you that, okay, in fact, if you want to invest in government bonds, you can actually register now, here, buy, and be able to transact and set up your stuff. So maybe somebody who had always heard about bonds and did not have the ability to do it, or was like, okay, I'll take care of that when I go to Kenya. Now you have the opportunity of doing that. So that could be Joe Blow, or it could be the guy who has $1 million and is like, okay, I want to put it in government bonds, and I want to put it in government bonds of Kenya because there's a high rate of return when I do that, right? If I do the long term versus I do the short term, or whatever the case may be. So there's situations that are happening like that, so I think that there was opportunity for those who want to invest money in Kenya, and for those who are looking at potentially investing money in Kenya. Kuna wale watu walikuwa nauza maploti, walikuja as usual, maguta were there. So that opportunity was there. And again, these are vendors. So if you're in the market, or maybe you are not in the market, and something that, Ali, you may not have known, if you wanted to invest in government bonds, you do need to open a KCB account, apparently, in order to do that, which I found to be, what?
A KCB
So,
account,
if you
or
didn't have a KCB account, you couldn't invest in those government bonds.
Are you
now,
saying
unless
KCB
you
or
know something I
CBK?
don't know. Go ahead.
Are you saying a KCB or CBK account?
No. You can't open a CBK account because CBK does not.
CBK account.
Yes, CBK deals with govers, right?
'Cause
Or it's a
banks,
government
yeah.
entity with banks, actually, right?
Yeah.
So you cannot open a CBK account. It has to be a KCB account. And remember, KCB is a government bank or government arm of banking. So
Okay.
they are the ones who would push for you to through that portal. Once you have that, then now you can do this purchasing of the government bonds. And again, this is through what they're calling the DAO CSD, which is Central Bank of Kenya driven. They were there, and as usual, again, it's back to investments. So if you have that discretionary money, you have maybe a $2,000 or $1,500 or $500, whichever amount it is, then you are the people who they want to, or you're the target audience for these guys, as well as wale watu wa kuuza maploti. Then now you come into spaces of tech. where it's different things within tech, different companies. And I was not privy to a lot of the tech stuff because the tech stuff happened prior to me coming in. So this stuff started at 10 o'clock in the morning. I was working, obviously, so I couldn't get there at 10 o'clock. But by the time I got there had been some breakout panels. Textiles had been one of them. So somebody who is in the clothing industry, or somebody who maybe is doing things like T-shirts or whatever it is, or you have a clothing line, that would have been a good panel for you to be a participant in, especially trying to figure out how to get into, say, possibly the EPZ stuff, or even bringing your stuff from Kenya, or maybe getting merch from Kenya to bring across. So those are some of the things that they had, and the reason why I bring that again is culminating with Vivo coming to Atlanta and opening their store, because they used the
Who's Vivo, for those who don't know?
Go ahead.
Who's Vivo, for those who don't know?
So Vivo is I guess I'd say a clothing line or clothing manufacturer from Kenya, and they have, from what I was told, they have 27 outlets. So the one in Atlanta was their 27th. So they are pretty much all over the country, and I think, don't quote me, I think they're in East Africa for sure, and it looks like they might even be all the way up to South Africa. So I don't know what their actual strategic goal is for their stores, but from what I heard is that they wanted to have like 50 plus, but they are on number 27. So to me, if you ask me, that's quite a bit, for I think they have not been in, I don't think they've been in business for more than 10 years. And somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. But just looking at the quality of their clothes, I was very impressed. I've seen, Vivo stuff before, but I was impressed seeing the clothes up front. But one thing I also noticed is that Vivo partnered with other manufacturers. So because Vivo is all textiles, they have partnered with somebody who does leather. They have partnered with somebody who does jewelry. They've partnered with somebody else who does things like things made from like weaving, like baskets, mats, those sorts of things, tablecloths, that are fancy. So I think their partnerships they have about like 4 or 5 partnerships, and each one is those areas specialize in something different. So leather, metal, the type. So basically the areas that they don't cover, that you would potentially, or should I say, household related stuff, right? So the stuff that you would not, that you would want, but they didn't cover, just as being a clothing manufacturer. And those are some of their partners who they have brought into their Vivo store in Atlanta.
Okay.
Back to your studio.
All right. Now, so much about Atlanta. Because time is running out, we also want to come to DC. Unfortunately, we did not have any representation in DC. Omosh was supposed to come from Atlanta back to DC, but I don't know.
Brown envelope kalikuwa mia huko.
Yeah, I don't know whether there was a brown envelope that.
Bana Ali, you didn't see the way I made Zakayo smile, bana.
No,
Ama
I
you
know.
want me to put the picture here? Usimweke hiyo picha ndio watu waone.
I know.
Please.
You are the people we're talking about.
You're an Azimio sympathizer.
Yeah.
And by the way, I didn't take a selfie. That thing was
selfie took
done
you.
by the PPC.
The selfie
I was
took
not
you.
part of it.
So the selfie took you.
Let me tell you,
Yeah.
Jamali, he made a beeline for me. Like I was, the way you hide behind somebody. The
Yeah.
guy came straight. He went around. Everybody said, "Huyu ndio nataka kumsalimia huyu," and he
Yeah.
brought his hand out. So
Ah,
I was
okay.
like, "Hey, boss, niaje?" So like I think it was the way I talked to him, and he
Yeah.
just started laughing, and we both
Okay.
laughed, and it was captured. But it was interesting. So
But was there an envelope that was slipped?
No, there was
you
no brown
can't-
envelope there. But
Okay.
Ali, your friend Kanja, was front and center. By the way, he was sitting next to my DVD. I don't know how Kanja pulled it off, my boy Kanja, but he was there. Benjamin Onyango, who
The actor, the
basically
Hollywood guy,
is actually my relative. He's my uncle, but he's a well-known Kenyan actor in Hollywood and has been there for years.
Mhm.
I think Wow, I was gonna say maybe 30 years or so that he's been doing stuff out of Hollywood.
Yes.
And he's one of the guys who actually was even mentioned by Ambassador Meg Whitman when she was, talking and doing her speech and all of that as she's introducing people. So, and again, this is back to Tyler Perry. So I know I'm mixing and matching and going here and there, but
It's
Yeah.
good to
they
provide
had
context,
people in different parts of the creative space who are represented, and some people did get a chance to actually get up and throw questions at the president. And
won't even
there's
go into that.
an artist, I think, what's her name? Is it Vivian? Is that her name?
Yeah, Vivian. Yes, I know. I saw some.
Yes,
some whatever.
I think Vivian got up. She spoke. Me, I didn't. Did you guys know that she writes books? I think she writes like children's books or something.
No.
She had 2 books, and she took her books up there and presented to Zakayo and.
Was Eddie Githe there, Lupita Nyong'o? Those
No,
are Hollywood
those
hitters.
those two are not there. And for folks who know Eddie Githe, he does not.
Identify
He's a
as
guy who
Kenyan.
doesn't mix a lot
With
with
Kenyans.
I think he's an introvert. I could be wrong, but he does not mix a lot with people.
With
And to me,
crowds.
I don't know if
Eddie,
either
you're
they
welcome
got
to the One Mic Show. Okay, if you're listening to
I
us.
don't know if they got to Lupita A on time, or whether this is something that she would even have say dropped whatever she was doing to come in. And again, depending on how busy you are, it's a good look, I think, for Kenya. But they should have, in my opinion, done a better job to get those big names that we have, like Lupita, to come to this thing so that it doesn't look like this is a quote-unquote Zakayo project. Sijui kama unanielewa.
Nakuelewa, Omosh.
There's optics. There's always optics behind it, and somebody might say vile nishaambiwa Azimio
Your support
sympathizer.
sympathizer.
Maybe also for her should be told, how are you? How is it that now you're sympathizing with this chap and
But-
you're bringing this guy and you're coming to an event that this guy is doing, and yet we know that you're in opposition, quote unquote. So, if you looked at this thing as a Kenyan, from a Kenyan perspective, it was good for the country. The questions that I would have is there anything that's going to come out of this? And I think that's a skepticism that we always have as Kenyans. And as we have seen in prior times, it always turns out badly. Back to you, studio.
And to add to what Omosh is talking about, skepticism, in as much as you're doing this, trying to woo, you're doing Tyler Perry Studios, Tyler Perry Studios, you're trying to, you're bringing all this. But at home, when we look at home, what have you done to really, not structure, but to anchor the industry?
The industry, yeah.
What have you done to really make the industry thrive? What have you done to open up the possibilities for upcoming producers, for upcoming writers, directors, screenwriters, movie scripts, whatever? Because just the other day, we heard of, we were saying a proposal in the bill. Okay, not even proposal, guys who are creating content in Nairobi being surcharged.
Yeah.
And that is just one. You remember when this guy, not Alfred, this guy who was the board chairman or whatever, was going around banning movies, or what's his name? He's now the chairman.
Mutua.
Mutua.
Yeah.
What has been done at home that we can say this visit here is going to bridge a lot? Like what has, because I'm not sure. And by the way, what I would like to hear is not the people who you could say have already made it, not the people who are already bona fide, let's say, actors or whatever in Kenya, right? It would be nice to hear from them what has been done in the 254 in Kenya to really nurture the industry. What has really been done? So that we can say, okay, this makes sense. But also, if that is the case, you don't need the president to go there. What you need is the CS of who?
The CS,
the CS, a cabinet secretary, whatever,
in charge of culture,
or something like that.
or,
Yes,
or the creatives,
creatives,
the one in charge of arts.
Yeah, you know that one. You send that person there.
Yeah, send a Babu Namwamba there.
Or go with a Babu Namwamba. Was he there?
But Uno,
Yes.
I want to say what Omosh said here.
Mhm.
Like, yeah, I agree with everything you're saying, but it's also not such a bad look, because for me, it gives these people who are in that industry, it gave them a platform for them where they look at it this way, right? We had people from Kenya and people from here who are in the industry here, and then they were in an environment which is successful with the president there, and gave them a way to start a conversation and telling him that this is what we want back home. And all this is a continuous conversation. It's been 2 weeks since the guy left. We cannot start seeing the fruits right now. What we want to see is that how do you continuously do this conversation? The people who attended, with your peers who did not attend, how do you continue bridging up this conversation, this access that you got with the president through this that's coming through? So let's say Steve Harvey comes in. How are you going to leverage that to be able to continue this conversation to help yourselves back home? Because the thing is this, politicians will give you lip service for a month and go. But if you can be able to hold that conversation open, that gate, and continue talking to them, it's a way to open for them. So I don't think it's such a waste that way. They already have that in. Now it's how they use that in to help themselves. That also matters.
Yeah, I mean, I hear your point, Mika.
Let me jump in real quick, Ali. So to the point what Mikasi is saying is, for instance, there's a lady who I know and I had a conversation with, and was able to actually fly in from Phoenix, Arizona to come into the diaspora meet that the president was having, and got an opportunity to ask a question. And the question she was asking was, how is it that I can partner with Safaricom to help my students who are ICT students get internships and potential jumpstart, so that when they hit the industry, or when they're industry ready, they could get jobs easier. And by her students, she means her students in Kenya. And so the president said, oh, by the way, the Safaricom CEO is here. And boom, she was put in touch with a guy, and now they're collaborating off of this chance, that she took to fly from Arizona. So it is possible for some of these things to happen from a networking perspective. And I also got a chance to talk to the Safaricom CEO, and he was very willing to have conversations and talk. And I think that just being in that environment, or them having met you here in the diaspora, they don't take you as quote unquote a joke. It's not the same as them meeting you in Kenya. I don't know if that makes sense. So back to what Mika was saying, the whole networking and the linkage, it goes a long way for them to meet you here in the diaspora, because that's actually what they came in, quote unquote, to do. And if they can make linkages with those of us who are here in the diaspora who are doing something, then it's beneficial to their company as well as to you. Back to studio.
So I hear you, Omosh, and I hear what Mika said. But here's my overall worry, because I'm the type of guy who likes looking at the bigger picture. So are there individuals who will benefit from this trip and from these interactions that were had there? Yes.
Yeah, Ali,
definitely yes.
So let me talk something about the Tech Expo. And I'll talk about the benefits.
No. But before we go to the Tech Expo,
this is something that
before we go to the Tech Expo, let me just make this one point, Mick, and then I'm gonna go back to you. My worry with even the way we are framing these conversations, there are individuals who are gonna benefit. There's a few people who are gonna benefit, but I'm looking at this at the bigger picture. Like the average creatives that we know, like some of them who work for us, like for example, like even editing our videos and everything, who just the average creatives out there, is there any benefit? Because these top people who based on networking, are they gonna benefit? Yes, but 3, 4, 5 years from now, is there any direction that an average person who's doing this work, which is the middle 90%, see how they're gonna benefit? I have a very skeptical answer, and the honest answer is no. So this was very good for optics, visibility, but is there, or maybe if one of those average creatives is here, please come back and let me know, like how just that average guy. I'm not talking about these big people who can get into a deal with a Safaricom executive and that kind of stuff. Those ones are gonna benefit. There's no doubt about
Butita is benefiting. That's it.
Butita will benefit.
No doubt.
But we're talking about, like that average person, these people who are hungry, these hustlers who we are trying to get them from where they are to the next level. Mika.
We can look at our local MAGA guy.
And then the thing, and that is what I said. Remember what I said? I said, as long as this conversation is continued to be had intentionally and honestly, it will open up to these other people. Because Butita doesn't do stuff by himself. Butita works with Kina Jugush, Kina Phil, Kina Belmutua, right? Belmutua, Kina Phil, they do little guy productions. From, if you look at their films, they act with upcoming and season names. So as long as there's that continuation and there's this opening and they stick to what they spoke about, Ali, you're going to see it. That's why I said it's a continuous thing. It's supposed to be open and going. Now, the issue is if somewhere down the line it stops, then the trip will be a waste. All this networking that has been made will be a waste, right? So I wouldn't just be too quick to cut it out and say no. I would say kwa hawa watu wa Moshi walikuwa wanasema walikuwa 200 people huko ndani, maybe 110 of them walikuwa hapo ndani juu ya vibes. But if the 90 who were there because they were there for serious business continue with what took them there, those are 90 clear pathways for open talent to thrive that were not there. That's how I look at it.
But let me say this. I mean, okay, here's the thing. I'm not arguing against what Mika is saying and what Omosh is saying, but I'm supporting you. But again, for me, kwa grao, on the ground, in order for this thing to have happened, my concern and my question is very simple. And I don't know. I would need somebody who is a producer, actor, director, lighting, key grip, video editor, sound.
So let me give you an example.
No, wait. Mika, let me finish. Let me finish. Let me finish.
Yeah.
When I look at that, I'm looking at that situation, that environment, EO situation home. Is it nurtured and good enough such that our content or the content that they produce we consume? Because how much Kenyan content do we consume? Let us just say, how much Kenyan content do we consume? Even while in Kenya, on the ground. Apart from signing up for Zuku or Showmax,
yeah,
to find that, what local content are we seeing on Citizen or NTV or KK24?
On the major networks.
On the major networks.
Yeah.
Forget subscriptions. How much content that is produced locally
is being consumed
locally,
or even being played in local movie theaters?
Exactly. Yeah. How much? Because that is where it begins. Because if that is the case, then I would question, what my question would be, if we have a very good, thriving, guys are eating, feeding their families, building wealth or whatever, how you want to look at it, but you can thrive in that environment, then these guys would be coming to us to do something. We don't have to go to them, but we are going to them but we are not taking care of home. Have we taken care of home? How much content do we produce? We don't even have to go far. Music. We keep struggling to try to push Kenyan music in whatever capacity, urban tone or whatever. But Kenyan movies, it's only maybe we'll hear somewhere here, we'll hear something here, movies on Netflix, maybe here, whatever. But when you go home on the ground, hata ukifungua TV, 7 o'clock news, or before career, how much content locally on Citizen or whatever are you gonna see? How much are you gonna see Kenyan content playing?
Telenovela.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So again, I understand it's a big platform, and I agree it is good exposure. It is awesome that we are doing this. But nyumbani tumefanya nini to bring up? It's like you go and you go and see somebody's child, or you're trying to go and do something with somebody's child, lakini nyumbani mtoto wako unamwabando unamfanyia madhara than you. That is my thinking process.
Okay, Mika, let's hear from Mika, and then tutakuja DC because time is running
Yeah,
out.
then we wrap up. Yeah.
No. I was saying when Uno was saying that, I think I just report to when Uno was saying that all this thing, like, let's say for example, Steve Harvey is going back home to shoot that family, right? That is, it might be temporary, but that is creation for all those people. All those people do lighting, staging, mainly all those people get opportunities to be in that. Now, one thing, the guy who was here, Butita, right? Butita has a show that he produces called An Astroto. It's on YouTube, right? So basically, he understands this struggle on production and distribution and how it happens. And again, as I said, now these are the people who now again will have to turn around and say, okay, mzee, umetuleta huku state, tumeona vile vitu ziko, wako na distribution, wako na hivi na hivi na hivi. If you guys could help us and push or put a quota on distribution of Kenyan content on TV, itatusaidia na hivi na hivi. And as I said, conversations of these things are supposed to continue happening slowly and slowly. It just depends on the people who came in. How many of them are going to continue want to push this conversation and pushing on with it? Because this could have, as you have said, this could have been a trip that you gave to the CS, and the CS picks his own crew of people to come and do this without that whole fanfare of the president and allowing other people to come in. And guess what? In the joyride trip.
Now, here, as we wrap up, here's my basic problem. When we look at, when we're trying to be successful, you want to look at our similar peers who've succeeded in the same space and what they did. And who are our peers? Other countries in the African continent. Who has succeeded in the African continent when it comes to the making of movies? Nigeria and South Africa.
South Africa.
Yeah. Now, did they succeed by trying to get big studios to come to their country, or did they grow the industry and then big studios from outside saw, they were like, Allah, what is going on here? We need to get a piece of that. That's what they did. South Africa, like I said, and Nigeria, they've already had a thriving industry that has been there for so many years. In fact, Nollywood is one of the largest employers in Nigeria, if I'm not mistaken. And people followed them. So Ikitu, this government, they call it bottom up, but they're trying a top-down approach, which I have not seen working anywhere. Yes, we are going to give them the benefit of the doubt. We'll give it time. Maybe there's something we don't know. But this top-down approach of, if our country is struggling with soccer, go get a Brazilian coach and throw him there and see if this team is going to improve and qualify for the World Cup, rather than build the structures from ground up, nurture these players from when they're young to by the time that they're getting to professional level, they can compete at the highest level. So to me, that's just my issue. Someone maybe there's something I don't know. Someone show me where this top-down approach worked, whereby big movie company came to your country and your industry grew from that big production house coming from the top and then trickling down to the bottom? Someone tell me, because
But Ali, have you considered that maybe this big movie industry can teach them how to build from the bottom going up? Sometimes you have to go to the experts and see how they do
so
it, and then they come and teach you how to
where has
make it
that
from the
worked?
side,
So my question
right?
is, where has that worked?
Yeah, no, I know.
Where has
I'm not
that
saying carrying it, but then I'm saying there are people who will go to. I'll give you an example. Give an example of the Arabs who came to the Western world, see how the Western world works, then went home and built home. So it's the same thing. You bring these guys as experts. Your movie industry is good. Help us grow ours, and they teach you. Okay, fine. You increase you increase distribution. You do this. You do this. You allow laws to allow your actors to do this and do this. Help us build our industry. I'm not saying that is what they're going to do, but I'm just giving them the benefit of the doubt that maybe this trying that from the top bottom might be the person who actually tells them, why don't you guys just switch it over and then let's see how it goes.
Okay, before I'm gonna say this before Mosh chimes in, and I'm gonna ask, like, we probably really don't have to go to Tyler Perry Studios. Tukona Lupita Nyong'o, Academy Award winning, in very successful movies or whatever. Why has her success or that not really done anything positively
to our movie industry?
Exactly.
We
food for thought.
Yeah, food for thought.
Food for thought.
That's a very difficult question.
Exactly,
there's a
because
lot of things to put on one person. This is an actor who's still acting on a career.
It's not again.
She can't carry an industry for a whole country.
Okay, that's fair enough, Mika. But I'm just trying to understand. Okay, maybe Kenya might be the first place. Where has this top-bottom?
We shall see.
Where has it worked?
Yes.
When you look at places like, forget about the movie industry. When you look at other industries, let's say like the car manufacturing industry, how countries like Japan became good at manufacturing cars is that they told America, like, you want to sell us cars, come make them here. Now, while Americans were making them there, they learned how to do it. Same thing with Chinese. They learned a lot of things from Americans, and they built it from there. So maybe if those studios come and set up shop, not for intent of just coming to do their movies here, but for the intent of maybe creating that industry and creating people with that experience, or being able to build our own studios, and then we start having our own industry like South Africa does, like Nigeria does, like other African, even Tanzania. Tanzania also has a very interesting.
And I wish Bandia was here to tell us. Yeah,
it's only that Tanzania, of course, now their movies are in Swahili. Of course, nowadays,
which is okay.
Nowadays, there's a benefit of having subtitles. So maybe they can also benefit from that. But Tanzania also churns out a lot of. They churn out a lot of movies.
Ethiopian Airlines, you will find the movies in their. When you're flying Ethiopian Airlines, you'll find Ethiopian movies. Omosh, tumekimia sana before we wrap up.
Now before we go to Omosh, real quick, DC, it's unfortunate that, let me not say it's unfortunate, we did not attend, or let me speak for myself. I'm not going to speak for anyone else. I did not attend by choice, and I think I told people this is a kind of event that we would have loved to attend because it's in our city. But I personally, did not attend because of, for a number of reasons,
You're a sympathizer.
But one of the reasons is, White House for
us.
Azimio
sympathizer.
Yes, me.
Now, White House, for those of us who, in full support of the Palestinian cause, that's a headquarters of a command center of a genocide that's currently happening. So I'm not gonna be, and there's a lot of work that has been done to boycott, the White House, to boycott the president. So I'm not gonna be that one small guy. I'm a very small guy when it comes to the grander scheme of the protests that are happening across America for the Palestinian people. So I don't want to be that small guy who, how do I put it, who decided to, betray the cause because of, 2 silver coins and a bag of millet. I was just like, you know what? It's unfortunate I'm going to attend. I was hoping, that there was going to be enough people.
Selfie on the White House lawn.
I was hoping there was going to be enough people who are going to attend and who are going to be willing to come to the show and talk to us about the different events that happened in DC. But like Mika said, and Mika said this, but at that point I did not give him the benefit of the doubt, but now I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. A lot of people went there for good vibes and selfies, because a lot of people you talk to who are there, they cannot tell you one or two things. And I'm not saying everyone. But quite a good number of people went there for good vibes. And it is unfortunate, and that's why, as Kenyans, we get treated the way we get treated by our politicians. Because my expectation was for, and it's really weird that most people that went there don't want to talk about it. Yes, they went there, they took the pictures and everything, but it's kind of like that was it. That was it. We were given what was called a fact sheet by the White House. And this is what we got. And we did get a couple of things. One of them was in digital health and education initiatives, where the U.S. committed over 31 million to support Kenya's digital health infrastructure, including 4 million for solar power, for solar power solutions for health facilities, and enhancing community and facility information systems. That's from the White House. Education.
That is a very big win, by the way, Ali.
Well,
the health technology, if they manage to integrate that healthcare system, that is going to improve health by a lot. The mortality rate is going to drop.
It's a big win. It's a big
win.
With
a really huge number.
Yeah, it's a big win. I agree with you. But we also have to find out what Americans are really looking for. What's not been said in public. Because of those things they'll say in public, and there are those things that they will not say in public. And of course, we already have our
Amanda Bay. That is what they've always wanted all the years.
So of course they want a military base in Kenya. We already have our police who are on their way to Haiti. And there's a couple of other defense issues that we already know that they want. Now another aspect is the education collaborations were also established, including a new $3.3 million scholarship program for 60 Kenyan students to study in the U.S., and the creation of the EdTech Africa initiative in partnership with several U.S. universities and companies like Microsoft and MasterCard. Of course, you can go to the White House website to check those details. Then they talked about peace and security cooperation. They say the U.S. designated Kenya as a major non-NATO ally, reflecting its importance in regional security, particularly in counterterrorism efforts against groups like Al-Shabaab. And then, of course, we know recently it was announced in the news that Kenya will be part of adjudicating the conflict that's currently ongoing with the Houthi rebels in Yemen. So they might be brought to Kenya for trial. We'll get into those details later. And then they say that new funding, approximately $916 million, was announced for various security initiatives, including enhancing Kenya's defense capabilities, improving police training, and supporting international missions. So all this, let's say this is being done on behalf of the U.S.
Okay.
This is not necessarily for Kenya. This is being done on behalf of the U.S. So on infrastructure development, there was a major deal that was signed for the construction of the 3.6 billion. It's called Usahihi Expressway. I don't even know what kind of name is that. 3.6 billion Usahihi Expressway from Mombasa to Nairobi, which will rival the Chinese-built standard gauge railway in terms of traffic. This now this right here, remember, this goes back to a promise that President Trump made to Uhuru. I think this was back in, was it 2018? It was never kept. Bechtel was supposed to do that construction.
Yes.
Yeah, that promise just disappeared. So we are seeing it resurface again. So just because it's America that said it, doesn't mean it will be done. But
Yes.
let's wait and see.
We shall wait and see.
So here they talk about anti-corruption and judicial reforms. The U.S. committed $1.55 million towards anti-corruption programs in Kenya, including enhancing budget transparency and supporting civil society's role in governance. So these are the same things that when we were going to China, these are the same things that we're saying, that these are the things that we are fighting. You know, like we're gonna deal with our own stuff. We don't want another country to come and tell us your condition for getting aid is by you doing this and that.
Yeah.
So again, we've gone back to that. And then there was also technological and economic cooperation, where they say Kenya will benefit from investments in semiconductor manufacturing under the U.S. Chips and Science Act, aiming to integrate Kenya into the global semiconductor supply chain. So these agreements are part of a broader...
cobalt.
So these agreements...
Did you discover cobalt in Kenya?
Well, I don't know.
Did we?
But they're saying these agreements are part of a broader strategy to enhance bilateral relations, foster economic development, and strengthen cooperation between the two nations. The one that I'm worried most about here is this designation as a non-NATO ally. And by example, there's other countries that have been non-NATO allies before, major non-NATO allies like Kuwait, Bahrain, and Qatar. Qatar is the most recent one. And you see, with Qatar, they knew exactly what they wanted out of that relationship with the US. But now you see the problem with what the US does. They have those countries there to keep an eye on the rest of the Middle East, because America doesn't want these countries to have joint defense pacts. You know, like the way Europe has NATO. They want to keep dividing, because Africa, with the African Union and all this Pan-African talk, there was talk also of having a unified defense strategy. So this right here, Kenya, unfortunately, is becoming the first country to break that. The unified military strategy, the unified economic strategy, there's a lot of unification where we were to go out and negotiate things together, rather than be divided into small countries, and then you're told you're going to get this, you're going to get this. Then you end up with breadcrumbs, and what you're giving up, America wants Manda Bay. They want to create a military base in Kenya. There's so much you're giving up for whatever you're getting. But anyway, hopefully, these things are going to benefit, they're going to benefit Kenyans, and hopefully, they will get us somewhere. You know, I don't know. Uno, let me let you have the last word.
No, Omosh, before we wrap up. Omosh, I'm sure had
you wanted me to wrap it up, or you wanted me to have the last word, or you are having me do something that had something to do with wrapping it?
No. I thought you... Okay, you know what? It's okay.
Whatever you are doing was the last thing you are doing.
Okay, haya. Uno Mike, bas let's wrap it up hivyo Moshi.
Wahenga walinena kilicho na mwanzo hakina budi kuwa na mwisho. Meli imetia nanga. We are about to wrap this puppy up. Mika, och! And karibu sana bagadhe. Today is Friday, not tomorrow.
It sure is.
Man, let me tell you, this is the longest time of the suffer.
And welcome back bagadhe. Pole sana by the way, you know, pole sana bagadhe.
Mika, bado kuna jet lag?
Imeisha, lakini sasa nilikuwa nimechanganykiwa, nilikuwa nafikiria leo ni Thursday. The week was short, guys. The week was short.
Akaambiwa amka, wake up.
But anyway, I've caught up. Just want to say thank you. I want to thank Dr. J. Man, that man should come back and have a full show.
He's coming back.
That conversation about parenthood and everything, like just have a full conversation about parenthood and like to all, because and I like the way he was giving us his teaching, and he was insisting it's not just fatherhood, motherhood, it's parenthood, like, and emphasizing on it that it's both genders that are supposed to be in it. Umoja lakini wewe na selfie zako. You know, last time you went to the White House, you represented us well. Raundi hii sijui ulipewa nini. Watu jamaa no watu jamaa na kutukana kwa comments. Sijui ulikula brown envelope yake ama nini. But anyway, all in all, thank you to wapendwa wachangiaji, and I know it's summertime. People are going outside. Just be careful. Don't drink and drive, and let's have fun responsibly. Good night.
We enjoy.
Thank you,
essence and
Mika. Thank you,
sounds.
Mika. Again, thanks to our fans. We are back. Tutaendelea tu kuchambua. And again, thank you to Dr. J, as Mika has said. The subject is not over. Parenting does not stop. It's a continuous thing. Hata kama unafikiri umemaliza, ndio saa zingine huwa inaanza. And just when you think you have a solution, then now you have to parent your parents. Go figure. It's a 360 thing. So tujipanga too, and as usual, thanks to our fans, our listeners, our followers. We do this because of you guys. You guys are the ones who make us and inspire us to do these things. Hopefully you guys got something out of the information that we gave to you, and Kenya will gain off of the president coming to the US. For me, I look at the big picture. If Kenya gains, we all gain. It's not about the diaspora remittances, but really about what we as a country gain out of having this partnership with the US. Of course, there's going to be some individuals who kula vitu, but big picture for me is Kenya gains. That's how I'm looking at it. See you guys next week. Be safe, and tutaonana wiki jao. I'll see you.
All right, asante
Oh,
sana.
and good luck to Shuja. I think Ali, we didn't touch too much on Shuja, but Mikasi, maybe we tupe summary.
So Kenya is currently in Madrid, or the Kenya rugby team known as Fija is currently in Madrid, and they're playing for the playoffs to qualify to get. Actually, right now they're playing to qualify to get into the playoffs. So there was the 4 teams that were playing in the qualifier series who were playing the 4 teams, the 4 last teams that were in the regular 7 series. So they've been put into 2 pools, and from those 2 pools, the next the teams that will finish number 1 and 2 are gonna go and compete for the playoffs on Sunday to be able to qualify for to become to come back to the series leg. So Kenya currently right now in the group, they're number 2 behind Spain. They won their first game against Samoa. They lost their second game against Spain today. So they have a game tomorrow. They're playing Chile. So hopefully they beat Chile. They qualify for the playoffs, and then hopefully from the playoffs they can have a good day and qualify to come back and become a series leg, and we can go back to going to LA and watching them play live.
Meaning when the study comes back. Thank you, Mika.
Okay.
Back to you, studio.
All right, asante sana Mika. There was a question here that Pablo asked. Alibadawi swali kwako. Do you think there were any wins from the visit without buts? Just the wins you believe in? Pablo, I personally go by what someone has shown me before. You know, kama ni Pablo, tumechapa deal na wewe, na deal ikienda poa, you know, like when we do another deal, even before you know the outcomes, I'll be inclined to believe this deal will go well. But kama tumechapa deals na wewe, na umenisamba mara kadhaa, umenifieka mara kadhaa,
Kainel.
why would I, you know, like call a deal a win? So the one win that I will give you, Pablo, without buts, is that the PR, the aesthetics, they were amazing. You know, like people who are seeing this, yes, I mean, this guy, you know, like these guys are going far. So that was a big win. Now, the question is, will the public relation translate to the middle 90%? And I know you previously talked about people, you know, like have to figure out where these things are. the countries that are successful in the world, or countries that are doing well, it's because they've set up structures in such a way that hustler who's just going about their life, either driving a truck or selling fruits, everything is just working for them without having to read 137-page documents, without having to attend this and that meeting to see if they can get this or that deal, because there are very few of us who are privileged to be in that opportunity. Even in this diaspora, there are very, very few of us who are privileged to have the time to go comb through those documents, follow day by day to know if diaspora affairs has said something, do this and that. There are very, very few of us who are privileged to do that. And that's the reason why, until the day we figure out how to get that things working for that middle 90%, without them having to struggle, without them having to, jump through hoops or being told, we hukusoma hiyo kitu, kwa hivyo si complain. That's the day when we're going to be successful. Look at all successful countries. That's what they've done. There is no country in this world that has been successful by telling people that, you have to pull yourselves up by the bootstraps. That bootstraps argument is an argument that's used by those who are in power to excuse themselves for the work they're not doing to take care. When I say the middle 90%, I mean, there will always be poverty. There'll always be those people who are not reached. But to me, if you can reach that middle 90%, because there's a top 10%, the top 5%, who regardless of whatever situation, they're wealthy, they will be okay. But there's that, that general middle 90%. If that's a part, if that portion, if you focus on that portion where things can work for them without having to, do this and do that or jump through hoops, then that's a definition of success. Look at all countries that are doing well in the world, be it in Europe, be it in Asia, be it even in the Middle East. A very interesting country that I'm looking at is a country like Turkey, because Turkey was that poor, before Erdogan came into power. They had a lot of corruption, and they managed to see a 180-degree turn within a period of less than 20 years. So that's a very interesting country that I'm observing to see what potentially can happen in Kenya. So yeah, was there a win? Yes. PR,
100%.
aesthetics, all those things, those ones 100%. Even if you meet your African friends who are watching the news, they're like, hey, nyewe Kenya, you guys are going places. Not knowing that there are so many taxation issues that now that average crew is now experiencing in Kenya.
Appropriations bill.
Finance bill. Kwa hayo machache, yeyote ambaye anataka kunipigia simu, nambari yangu bado ni ile ile 1-800 mteule, na operator akishika simu mwambie unataka kusema na mjukuu, na akikuuliza ni mjukuu yupi, mkumbushe ni mjukuu yule yule wa Masai, because I'm Kenyan by blood, American by design, Masai by choice. Sichagui, sikagui na sibagui. Kwaherini.
Hila Lokitela. Anyway, big shout out to you. He had a very interesting saying. A pot that has cooked once can always cook again. Tafakari ya Muluya. Aiden, Daddy loves you. Jerry, Daddy loves you. Nemo, Daddy loves you. Until next week, be blessed.